All right, we're back to abolishing more nonsense. We appreciate everyone continuing to enjoy our podcast and enjoying us abolishing all the nonsense in our world. I think we hit about 25, 30,000 listeners the last episode. So we really appreciate the love and support. So we're going to keep this thing going, and obviously we'll get better. So please, any comments, any feedback, any questions, please do so, especially with questions for Brian, our in-house expert in men's mental health. So don't be shy. And so with the holidays coming up, though, I think we really want to hit on a key topic. Sorry for that really quick 180 right there. All the thank yous, but then, hey, let's get into it. Is depression. I think that's something that's not covered enough with men's mental health. I think depression is spoken about overall, but I think for men, I think it'd be really good to kind of digest and break down what depression is like for men, and maybe kind of see if men maybe don't know how to address it, how to find a solution for it, and see how we can elevate men mental health with depression. So, and I know I've learned a lot from you, Brian, you, Willie, as well. I've self-reflected as well if I ever went through depression or not. And but let's have our listeners learn more about it. Again, with the holidays coming up, I think in the fall, winter is probably the most depressing time for me. A lot of people because of the holidays, right? You got a lot of holidays. Christmas, Hanukkah. Well, not Hanukkah. What was it? Christmas. What is it? Hanukkah, Thanksgiving. All the holidays. Sorry, guys. There's a lot of holidays. I don't mean to, to not know all the holidays. I respect your religion, all that. It's just, there's a lot of things going on, and there's certain people, maybe whether it's lonely or maybe they're not happy being around certain people, or it's just too overwhelming for them, and even financial stress. We'll cover that as well. I mean, there's a lot of money, there's a lot of things to spend on: food, gifts, travel. So let's get into it. But I think to start off with the basics here is, Brian, what is
Yep.
depression? Right? I think that's critical to come from an expert, not some TikTok doctor out there that's just making up random shit.
Yeah, thank you for that. And for our listeners, if anyone wants actually like a real recommendation of actual YouTubers, TikTokers, and all that actually know their stuff, please, by all means, DM us, leave us a comment. I'd be more than happy to give like real recommendations because, like you said, there's a lot of fakers out there, but there's a lot of good knowledge that's being spread around. And unfortunately, those experts don't always get the most views. And so, yeah, I want to definitely be able to give them their due. So, you guys, if you're interested in that, leave a message below or something. And so depression, so yeah, just in the simplest, most scientific sense of it, it's basically a drop in serotonin, norepinephrine, dopamine, and those are neurotransmitters that in our brain that basically aid in certain things. Like, for example, people know serotonin is like the happy neurotransmitter. That's like happiness, optimism, and norepinephrine people associate with, you guys probably hear, like the fight or flight, right? So it's about action, mood, arousal, things like that. Dopamine is like the rewards and well-being. It's like most people know, like sugar or something like that. You get something like that, it makes you happy, right?
Oh, the sugars.
The sugars. Well, no, you don't want the sugars. You don't want that for our friends in the South.
Actually self-medicating when I gorge myself on Oreo triple stuff and ice cream.
Hey, I got some Oreo mints right now, man. Yeah, they're good.
Oh, no.
Mine are blueberries.
To each their own. It's a chemical imbalance, essentially, when a person is clinically depressed. Because, again, like when you think about serotonin, happiness, and optimism, if that lowers, then as you can imagine, it's harder to be happy and optimistic. If you're not optimistic about the future, that is really, really bad, because you got to be somewhat forward thinking. And then like dopamine goes without saying, like the rewards and motivation. If you just think, why should I try? Why should I do this? And you're not feeling the same satisfaction from maybe the same things that brought you happiness before. Like, let's say you're a competitive person and you won another race, let's say, but you can't even derive the rewards from that. There's something wrong there. You know what I mean? Because like, as an athlete, victory is what you're striving for. But if it means nothing to you anymore, that you're kind of empty, then that's something to consider. And you mentioned about men's mental health, men's depression. I mean, it's pretty much a known thing now that lower testosterone levels are linked to depression in men, and
Okay.
just lack of well being, considering testosterone is literally responsible for well being and libido in men.
Right. I mean, quick question, Brian. So what you're saying, so the chemical imbalances, right? There's always a stigma out there that depression is just weak people, right?
Yeah.
And look, and I've been guilty of it, and I apologize for my past for being very insensitive about that, right? Because I always thought depression was, oh, they're weak-minded, they're just soft, right? But in reality, it's a mixture of what happens to them in their life and
Mhm.
chemical imbalances, and it and
Yeah.
and I guess a two-part question: are those two things correlated, and are people just born sometimes with imbalances as well?
Yeah, it's a great question. Again, the answer is all of the above.
Okay.
um, I think part of the way you sometimes think about it. Well, first of all, it's not just you. A lot of people think that way, and it's mostly because the word depressed is overused, but incorrectly. Like, how many times you hear someone saying like, "Oh, I'm so depressed. My team's lost." Like if you're a Cowboys fan, for example, you always say you're depressed because every year, they stink, and so
Screw the Cowboys.
you know, we got to change the America's team thing. But anyway,
Agreed.
um, but like it's just overused. And sometimes, don't get me wrong, it's in jest. I don't want to be like mental health police and say you can't use it. I mean, I'm just saying some people overuse it, and it devalues that the people that actually go through it, and it's debilitating for them. And
Mm,
yeah, I mean, it's because what you're talking about is like different types of depression, essentially.
right.
I mean, yeah, there are lots of different types. The one most commonly thought of, and I'm sure the one that you're describing, is a major depressive disorder, and so or also called like major depression, and that's uh, it's depressed mood. It's like sadness, emptiness, loneliness, and hopelessness. But um, it manifests in like a lack of interest. So let's say, right, like jogging was something you always did to kind of just decompress after work and all that to feel better. You just suddenly stop doing it. Hanging out with your friends, you stop doing it. But these are things that had no downside in the past, but except all they do is make you feel good, but you stop doing it, right? And then there's like fluctuations in weight that could be up or down because some
Right.
people just stop eating, some people overeat. But the point is,
But like,
there's
why
something.
is that though? Is there a reason for all that? Because obviously, if hanging out with friends is a good
Yeah.
thing, running or boxing, whatever, why would someone stop that?
Well,
Like,
you
like
got to think
that.
of.
Like, to me, that's always interesting, right? It's like if it's a
Yeah.
good thing, then do it. Why
Hmm.
stop?
Well, because when your neurotransmitters aren't hitting, and the thing that made you act to go hang out, that gave you the rewards of hanging out with your friends, gave you that fulfillment, if all that's gone, the truth is you can't even explain it. It's almost like there's a part of you that
Oh
knows
wow.
you want to, but you're suddenly just unable to. It isn't a matter necessarily of you're unwilling to. It's just that you just can't. Like depression has often been described by many people as you're like in this pit, this dark pit, and there's not even a ladder for you to climb out of. It's just you feel like no matter how you try, you're just always in the same spot. Like you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, and so that goes way beyond like just feeling sad. And then of course, as you can imagine, if all of this happens and the things you did that gave you happiness and pleasure before, now it's going to physically take a toll because you're going to be fatigued more, right? You're going to have insomnia. You're not going to be able to get restful sleep because, guys, it's hard to sleep when you've got a lot on your mind, like negative thoughts, and you're trying to fall asleep. It's hard because you ruminate, right? And so these things have this other sort of like secondary effect, if you will, on your body and your physiology. And then if it gets really, really bad, I mean, there people have thoughts of like taking their own life.
Yeah.
It's just because if you feel like the things that in your brain that gave you like this future focus and now it's gone, the future seems hopeless again, like that endless pit I was describing. And so that's major depressive disorder. I think when people use the whole like, oh, I'm depressed or whatever because of just a trigger, again, I'm not trying to like minimize it, but that's more than likely something
It's
that
insulting to be really what it is. I mean, if someone, I mean, what you described sounds terrible.
I mean the
To have that feeling,
symptomology.
yeah.
The symptomology sounds a little more like maybe persistent depressive disorder. Like, granted, in the past they used to call that dysthymia. They don't call it that anymore. But that describes like a low mood. So it's not as severe as major depressive in the sense that it's not debilitating. Okay, like you can go to work technically. You go to the gym, you can do all that. It's just that there are some changes, appetite and low energy, low self-esteem, which is bad, but it's not as severe. And there is the thing that has to be 2 years to be clinically diagnosed, though. But the way most people describe feeling depressed or something like that, I guess for the actually the example of the Cowboys, it would be since 1994. So it is more than 2 years that they've been
Yeah, they've had
bummed
some
out.
struggles, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we're not going to be very popular in Dallas, are we?
I could
uh,
care less. Yeah.
but I mean, another one would actually be bipolar disorder. Now, people don't often think about depression and tie it to bipolar because they think of the other facets of bipolar, which is like the manic episodes, those short periods of like extremely high energy, grandiosity, and reckless behaviors. But then it's that drop. They drop off from that, and they have like low mood that lasts a very, very long time. And so that's another one as well. It's bipolar disorder. And so again, that one is a little different because, like I said, there's the manic part, but that's something that affects some men as well. You talked about the seasons, like winter and all that, the gloominess. That's typically associated with seasonal affective disorder, which is easy to remember because SAT, it's sad.
So that's actually a thing.
Yeah, it's a thing. And that one, it really is a result of like your body's like natural daily rhythms, and light therapy has actually been pretty effective in that. I've actually seen that where basically you're simulating sunlight. I
Yeah.
mean, and I can attest to the strength of just sunlight itself. Like, have you ever noticed like, when you wake up in the morning, but like all you have is artificial light, just the light in your room,
Yeah.
you're not up as much. But if you step outside and you catch the sun's rays, it's actually different. You're up
No,
a
it's
little
so
quicker.
true. I mean, I always encourage people to do this. The joke is earthing, right?
Yeah.
I actually legitimately do it. And I remember a buddy of mine was talking about it. It's not to be earthing, right? I know a lot of nutritionists, a lot of fitness folks. Shout out to Emmett Terrell and Brandon Woodley. They're down at level 6 training down in North Carolina. We went to school together, but no, I mean, I totally believe in that because you think about, I mean, it's science, right? I mean, humans.
Mhm.
I mean, we're mammals. We're part of the planet, and part of it is you need vitamin D.
Yeah.
Vitamin D has proven to help you with your mood, with your health overall, and everything like that. Helps your skin. Make sure you put some sunscreen on, Taylor. Okay, I know. Put some sunscreen on. I will do so. But no, I mean, every morning. No, but every morning I go outside, right? And 15 minutes, it was the sunlight, is literally just sit on the grass and just soak it in for 15 minutes, touching the grass, soak it in the sun. And it does really boost your mood and your focus.
Yeah.
So I guess that's one of the solutions, I guess, for that, or just mood in general for a lot of people is literally just go outside for a little bit. And if you don't have grass, you're in the city, just take a walk or just sit on the stoops or something like that and just soak it in.
And for all you women out there with your head in the gutter, vitamin D doesn't mean what you think it means.
I mean, I'm sure that helps too, but
In different ways.
I was
Yeah.
listening with my colleagues who works in North God's country. Mentioned he had a satellite for his desk. Like it's just a little globe that you plug in with via USB, and it's supposed to it's supposed to be the same wavelengths that the waves vitamin D response to go outside. I mean, it's anecdotal. He says it works. I know way back in the day, if you ever go to Alaska, if you've ever been to Alaska during the polar night, a lot of people need light therapy, but it was kind of very cult-like because you get this little box in a room with one of the what are now called sound lights, and we'd have this this recording. This is the sun. This is the sun. So it apparently works. And I kind of have the opposite problem. I love the darkness. I wish the sun came out.
Yeah.
It's a temperamental issue.
Yeah.
Well,
What
No, but
technology now that can fix these things if you don't.
yeah, no, I actually have
Yeah.
I actually have two of those that you're talking about.
Some lights, do they actually work? Because
Yeah.
anecdotal evidence.
or just
Well,
fucking walk outside. I mean, it's free.
well, for me, the thing is, I use it to wake up, not for like seasonal affective or anything like that. It's just because sometimes when I gotta wake up, it's still dark outside, and I find that like I just switch that on and bam, just hits me, and I stand in front of that for like 20 seconds, and I'm wide awake, pal. So yeah, it does work in that sense. Now, as far as the if it's depressive, again, like you said, as far as I'm concerned, it's anecdotal. I know of people that use it, but the way they use it is beyond just what I have. I have like a lamp. It's they have to have it like all over, and yeah, it's usually in cities that don't see as much sunlight. So yeah, it's like you're saying, like Alaska, sometimes Seattle, for example.
New York, we got plenty of sunlight.
There's not a lot of sunlight in Seattle. Last time I went up there, it was freaking 90 degrees and blazing hot.
Hey, if you go in the summer, it's perfect. But
Yeah,
but
it's not bad.
again, like you say, though, I mean, it's just situational because, like you say, some people they get triggered by not having sunlight, and whereas, like you said, you're the opposite. I'm with you on that. I don't need it to be like 100 degrees outside. In fact, I wish it wasn't. But I'm fine with being gloomy. I mean, as you know, I lived in Seattle for almost 10 years.
Oh, hell no.
I was fine with all that.
I guess I'm
But
the outcast here. I need that sunlight.
You're
I
the
love.
normal, man. That's the problem. For
I,
once, you're within the mean.
yeah, I love sunlight. I mean, you guys know I'm a beach bum, and it's funny. Every time you go to the beach or something, you always feel better. Yeah,
Yes.
it's hot and all that, but you do feel better once you cool down, once you go back inside. But
Yes.
that natural sunlight feels amazing.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing I've incorporated in my routine now. I mean, I'm not depressed, but I'm not gonna say I'm depressed by it. It's just the mood is just a little bit different. You kind of you're dragging ass more. But but when you have that sunlight, and even if you can't get it in the morning, whatever, and you have a little time where you take a call, just walk outside a little bit. The amount of times I take calls outside, just being the sunlight a little bit, has really helped in many ways. But just kind of go back real quick though, Brian. So I mean, to me, I mean, it's kind of, you talk about chemicals. I mean, sunlight does give you vitamin D naturally. It's probably the best form of vitamin D, so that's a solution. But the question I have to ask here is back to what I said about softness and mental weakness. Okay, so again, I do apologize in the past for the things I've said for that, because now I recognize they're all legitimate people that go through it, and I've learned a lot because sadly I've lost a few friends to suicide. So I've learned more about it and have been better about it. But the differences, though, right? So the chemical imbalances. Let's start with one thing first. The chemical imbalances in humans. Have you seen it increase in recent years because of technology, because of social media, because of societal changes? Have you seen that? Is that an actual thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of people, as you guys can surmise, blame COVID and things like that, which I do think that's one of the things that had a hand in all of this for different reasons, because COVID affected the population differently from a health standpoint, financial standpoint, family standpoint, political standpoint, right? So those are four things now that could affect a person's mental health. There's so many other things. Like, I mean, the easy way to kind of think about triggers or just reasons for why a person could feel depressed is just think of guilt, grief, and shame. Those are the big ones. Okay. Yeah. Guilt, grief, and shame are the
and
big.
that like directly affects. Sorry, just real quick, and that affects the chemical imbalances as well.
Yeah, it can.
Okay.
Yeah.
So things that happen in your life
Yeah.
or what's going on can affect the chemical imbalances, and then
Yep.
is that the same case vice versa as well?
Yeah, of course. See, like, there's this idea, for example, like, there's plasticity, neuroplasticity, and it's this neuroplasticity is a relatively new kind of discovery, if you will, about like we as people, regardless of our age, we can develop new patterns and new ways of thinking as long as we don't get complacent, basically. And so the idea is if someone is depressed, and again, we could get into the medications later if you want, but like that's one thing people can do, but also it's combined with things like therapy, having a strong support system. Like Vin, you talk about a tribe a lot. It is very important for men in this day and age to have that go-to, because sometimes that could be the difference maker right there between having one of your trusted friends just calling you on the phone, just not for any reason, just to share some stupid story sometimes, because one, that this is someone who probably does it all the time. It's predictable, right? We talk about things like sending funny memes and shit. It's predictable,
Mm-hmm.
right? But that
Yeah.
predictability is actually a cornerstone of a great friendship, because you know what's going to happen, and it's going to be funny, and it's going to be encouraging. And so I think that's something that can help, because then it could be the difference maker in some cases between someone who feels like they have nothing, and then they kind of just, their brain just basically telling them, no, you got your tribe calling you, telling you, hey, let's go hang out. They're visiting you. They sense something's wrong. They're dragging you to the gym, and they're understanding. Then you're not making that connection anymore of like, I'm in this pit. It's like now it's almost like your brain is trying to tell you you're in this pit, but you see like a bunch of hands coming down to try to grab you out of it. You see?
Oh wow, yeah.
It's a strong thing. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm really oversimplifying it there, because the reality is like it takes so much more. It takes discipline, grit, drive, and purpose. And purpose is one thing in particular that that we could do so many episodes on that one, but like that's something that I think,
and we will,
because I think that's something that maybe some men lost in the last couple of years, is purpose. And a man losing purpose is huge. And I know there are people out there that can say, well, everybody needs purpose. Yeah, but men really, really need it. Like evolution has dictated that men without purpose. Look, in a more primitive time, there were no men without purpose. Do you know why? Because
Food.
yes, they were out. Their food.
survival.
It was a good day for the crows, right? But that's just how it goes. And so men are hardwired to need purpose. And in the last few years, let's say you're a entrepreneur, and right in 2019 you decided to start like a hot pot restaurant. You knew it was gonna take off. Oh crap, pandemic hits. Hot pot is not something that Uber Eats can really deliver, because that kills the experience, right? You had a great idea, now you're out of business, right? Say you're a guy, man, you're like, I had this great idea. I can't, it was foolproof. Like, people love this
Or
stuff.
you just pivot to making it more Asian food in general that could be takeout delivery. I'm just saying, but
It could be.
Yeah.
It could be it's just, but if you're a guy who maybe didn't have the tools to think forward. And another thing is, if you didn't have a guide, a mentor, or to kind of steer you in that direction, and you decided, I'm going to take the plunge, I'm going to do this by myself, then you could be someone that became very depressed because you don't have that tribal system. Maybe you just had, like your family, which is fine, but the problem is your family is one that depends on you. They depend on you to come up with the solutions. And you couple that with all of this stuff, it could be a lot for a guy without the right tribal support to go through on his own, And
right.
so there's that. I mean, identity is big. We talk about men's purpose being the identity. I mean, during the pandemic, like there was a lot of things that people were, you would see in the news, people identifying like with certain things, but a lot of them, if we're being honest, was victimhood, right? I think in a prior episode, I mentioned about, if there's something I would really, really suggest for people, it's identifying as like tough. Identify as tough. But you got some people that maybe they were already depressed, maybe they were headed towards there, but they kind of take on this identity that I'm this victim, because, and they'll throw out a lot of different things. But the one thing they rarely throw out is accountability. They don't throw out grit. They don't throw out those kinds of things. And I'm not sure why. It's like the egg or the chicken. You know, I don't know which came first. Were
Yeah.
they mentally healthy but they became depressed, or were they already depressed and it just worsened? It's hard to say.
Right, and that's like the biggest thing I struggle with, right? On the whole thing with depression, men's mental health. Like, I get it now, right? It's definitely a chemical imbalance, and we do go through serious life events. Can definitely understand, right? Loss of a family member, like you said, a purpose, whether you're an entrepreneur or whomever, or just life in general, other outside of that. So, and that affects the chemical imbalance. Or some people are born with that imbalance, which is tough to deal with. But to that point, do people know they have depression? Like I've always wondered about that. And two, or do people use an excuse, like you said, victimhood, right? Because to me,
Yeah.
victimhood drives me absolutely insane, right? Life is short, like it's people. I just can't fathom how people can just soak into victimhood, acting like the world's, uh, yes, I mean, in many aspects, the world's against you, but overcome it, right? It's
Mhm.
like, it's your life, take control, stop being a victim, and persevere. It's hard for me to explain because I just get I mumble jumble when I talk about this because I can't fathom that feeling of victimhood, because to me that's just not a thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know how people just soak in it, because it's, you know and I guess one of the other things is, like, it's not, is it not fair? I don't know, because I feel like the mentality I always have is, I don't know if it's the right mentality or not, but there's always someone out there that has it worse, right? And number two, there's so many people that have been through similar things but have overcome it, right? And haven't used victimhood as an excuse. And number three, it's just stop being a bitch. I mean, that's just coming from me, by the way. I mean, shit happens, but you gotta figure out a solution.
Privilege talking.
It's like, shit, man. It's like, the life happens. Just overcome it. Like, I don't know. It's very tough for me to talk about it because I just don't understand. So I'm not the person to really talk about how to deal with that, because all my life I had a lot of things that happened to me, but I never treated myself as a victim. I just go, fuck it, okay, this is what's happened. Maybe I'll just have one night, one day of just soaking it in, right? Be angry, be sad, whatever. But okay, let's create a plan. What's the next steps to overcome this? So, anyways, mumble jumble, but
Yeah.
the for you and Willie, do people know they have it? Number two, or is an excuse with victimhood? And, like, what's the distinction? Because you do see it now, right? There are a lot of people that take depression as an excuse when they really don't have it, in my opinion, and they use that as victimhood. And to me, that's insulting for people who actually are going through it legitimately. Like, sadly, my friends that took their own lives, right? Two of the people I know. And to me, that's why, to me, it's insulting now when I do hear people like, "Oh, I'm depressed," and all that. When I do kind of see more of a victimhood mentality.
Well, before I get into the social and psychological part, I gotta talk about the cultural part, and I want to hear Willie's input on this one because I think we'll
I'm
probably
sure we have opinions that are probably going to cover listenership and,
because
No, it'll increase. It'll increase.
because you
Oh,
talk
okay.
about, do you know it or not? Well, as as the son of immigrants, for example, who came to this country very optimistically, like, we're leaving a much worse situation for greener pastures, and we really weren't allowed to be victims. That was the mentality. My father was in the military. My mom worked really hard. My grandma was a tough old lady. It was this idea that perseverance, grit, and discipline was instilled in us. And so it was almost this idea that you can't use a word if you don't know what it means. You know what I mean? And so that wasn't something that flew in my household, but it did build a lot of grit and actually um, a lot of grit and discipline, which is also one of the things we could discuss later. Like, that's it helps get you out of depression. But in this situation, it also is preventative, in my opinion, from a cultural standpoint. Will, has that been your experience?
Well, while my late father's exact words on that issue is probably not repeatable in polite company or for anyone that doesn't want to get canceled, uh, it is a lot. A lot of it is preventative. But yeah, my parents came here from Cuba. I want to emphasize the correct way, meaning with full paperwork, etc. The process, which was kind of hell in and of itself. But they had a lot of Vin's mentality. Like, yeah, someone else always has it worse. Uh, most people who are depressed are not locked up in a prison camp for daring to say that they don't agree with the Communist Party. They are not forced to steal and kill and eat raw chicken from the farm next door because the supply truck was running late. Which is why my dad never once ate chicken from 1971 when they went to Spain until the day he died. He did not. No nuggets, no.
Can't blame him.
Absolutely no buffalo wings. Refused. You know, I think the mentality. Again, this is not universal because the point I'm going to make later that I discovered the hard way when I lost them is that pain and grief are intensely bespoke. Like, yeah, someone else always has it worse. Would you rather have your depression, or would you rather be one of the 10-year-olds mining cobalt with your hands in the Congo? Well, I would rather have my depression. No shit. But I think there's two traps that people fall into. Yes, it's intensely personal, but comparing it to someone else, if you're already in that state, only makes you feel worse. You're like, well, shit. I'm not only am I depressed, but now I feel like a bitch because I'm not a 10-year-old mining with my hands in the Congo. Wow, I truly am now worthless and I'm ungrateful. And the other part of it is that I think my parents, well, I know for a fact my parents believe this because I endured listening to it for decades. Something that's not really taught is that there's always multiple ways through a problem. Okay, if you are depressed, if you are down, you can seek therapy. You can, you know, distract yourself with something productive. You can distract yourself with something destructive, and self-medicate, which is probably not wise. But the other thing that you can do is, to put it bluntly, put your head down and go through it. Do it the hard way, and as Vin would say, fucking deal with it. Find something on the other side, and say, I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I know I have to get this step from here, and I'll figure out the next step when I get there. And what people I think are not taught enough today is that the elegant solution always exists. I do believe that for any problem, doesn't matter what it is. There is always an elegant solution. But brute force always works. And, this is definitely revealing my engineering Catholicism mentality. Uh, if you're doing something, you should seek to do it in the absolute hardest, most miserable, painful way possible. Because at least you know that even if you don't get a reward from getting out of your situation, at least you know the pain will end once you get there, right? And that's something. Maybe my parents were notorious for that. All their friends who left Cuba in various states of abuse and true victimization. Like, yeah, I'm not decrying people who are victims right now in this country in real life. If Castro's henchmen haven't thrown you out of your house and burnt it to the ground, it's a different type of victimhood, right? So maybe it's situational. At least for them, they embraced the direct, open fire approach. Do it the hardest way possible, and that's kind of how they raised me. Which, take that for what you will. There's multiple ways out, but at least that was their mentality. Always go the front of the soul.
So they raised a successful aerospace engineer who's an investor alongside me. So very successful.
But still not a doctor. Let's just be.
It's not about immigrant, doctor, lawyer, right? Doctor or lawyer.
Yeah, right. I think my parents were secretly Jewish. They only wanted a doctor or a
Yeah,
lawyer.
I remember I remember holding the spreadsheet. Shut up, Willie. I know you love spreadsheets. I'm like, a doctor has a peak of X, right? But as an investor, though, my peak is endless.
But here's the thing, and this is I say it jokingly, but this is exactly what I'm talking about. Always striving for more, and the immigrant parent mentality of your accomplishment is only a stepping stone. Had I been what's that fellow who's a Navy SEAL, a doctor, an astronaut,
Yeah,
the super Asian,
Johnny
right?
Kim, I think is his name.
He's the man.
Yeah,
Shout out, Johnny.
Yeah, even if I had that guy's life and became, a net worth 1,000x Elon and Bezos and everyone else combined, if I was the richest guy in the known universe and everything else, I guarantee you, part of me deep down inside knows my mom would look at that and is like, yeah, but you're not an admiral. You're only a doctor. You don't own the hospital.
Yep.
Kind of like that never settling mentality.
And I think it's a good mentality, right? I mean, I think more
It
people.
doesn't backfire on you. It's a great mentality.
Yeah, but even then, that backfires. I think it's a learning lesson, right? I mean, you guys know I talk about this all the time. I think I think society doesn't teach enough about failure is okay, right? It's the whole thing about failure, soak into it. No, yeah, soak it in from a standpoint of okay, have that couple of days of like, fuck, man, that sucked. Eat your life away. Have a couple of drinks, like shit, that was terrible. But then come back from it. Okay, what happened? What can we learn about it? And how can we do better? And I think that's the problem is there's a lack of balance. I think Willie, you just summed it up perfectly with your experience, right? It's balance. I think it's if you do go through depression, fine. It's like okay, but you have every right to feel that way, but also don't just live in it, right? Find a solution, find better ways to get it. Oh, not better ways. Balance it out with okay, it's acceptable to feel that way. There's nothing wrong with that, and I think society has agreed. Like okay, look, yeah, depression, like you have to be sensitive to that, and I agree. But at the same time, balance it with solutions, right? It's like okay, you have a right to feel that way. Don't compare, which is sometimes that I go through that problem is comparing, right? But it's okay to feel depressed. It's just balance it with healthier ways of dealing with it, and then, like you said, brute force, or find a solution. And I think that's something I think a lot of men need to understand. It's not being soft or a bitch to go through depression because life happens, right? Whether it's a loss of someone or chemical imbalance or other things happening like a failed business or another relationship like a girlfriend or marriage or whatever, just in general. But find a fucking solution to how to deal with it, right? Still okay to feel that way, but just try to help that feeling with solutions. And as Brian mentioned earlier, that's a very good way of preventative as well as dealing with the problem, right? Is actually finding your purpose and getting back to your feet. And I think that's probably the best way to sum it up, right? I think that's where my mindset is. It's like the whole victimhood thing is the difference between what we're talking about is that we're talking about solutions and accepting the fact that that's how you feel, but then how can you resolve it?
Yeah. Everything the both of you guys said is very in line actually with the actual therapy solutions for coming up with ways to get through depression. But if I could take some of what you guys said and just kind of codify it, for example, for our listeners to kind of make it really easy to digest is now, because you mentioned earlier, how do you know, for example, if you have depression? And I went over like
like, how do you know?
guilt, grief, and shame. Let's just, like, again, I don't want to go over every single way thing of depression because, like, for example, we're focusing on men. So, for example, I'm not going to focus on like postpartum depression, for example. That's way too more complicated. And that would and the seasonal affective. I'm not going to cover that. I'm going to cover like major depressive disorder that's based and rooted in like guilt, grief, and shame. Okay, like the way I would codify it is probably the first step that person has to do is just really work on making peace and making amends with your past, whether it's a person or yourself, because sometimes that's where the shame comes in, something we did where maybe we felt we weren't good enough, we let other people down, we made mistakes. You have to confront that. You have to really work through it and forgive yourself. You got to move forward and make peace with your past, because it's been said, for example, depression comes from the past, anxiety comes from the future. And so if you can't get through your past, you can't get through depression. You're just gonna be living in recovery with it. I mean, everybody lives in recovery in some way or shape or form, but you're going to be a slave to depression if you don't confront your past and deal with it. Okay. And you do that again through the things we mentioned earlier: therapy, medication if needed, your friends, your family, your support systems, things like that. But once you're at that point where you've made peace with it, to move forward, you have to carve out a purpose. You have to find a purpose. Now, I can't tell someone how to do that because that's different for different people. You could see a therapist, a life coach. You could see, like, just listen to your mentor if you have a mentor, because that's huge. I think we all agree mentorship is a lost art. I think a mentor can help you with that. So find purpose. Surround yourself with natural supports, people who aren't paid to be your friend, people who are your friend, significant other, close family members. But the thing is, they have to actually be supportive. And I'm not talking about like acquaintances. Acquaintances come and go, and sometimes they'll fuck up your day. Let's just be real about that. But your friends don't. An acquaintance could tell you something discouraging. Your friend can tell you something discouraging, but the difference is that your friend says it to prevent you from doing something stupid. Like saying, like they'll say the things that are hurtful to hear, but they have your best interest in it, and that's the difference. So have a strong natural supports. So purpose, natural supports, and then you have to cultivate grit. Okay, you cultivate grit. Athletes that achieve at a high level know about grit. They know, you come in early, you leave late, you put in extra hours, you watch film, you work out, you do the really, really uncomfortable stuff that you hate, so that like you reap the benefits later, because the victory and all that completely outweighs the potential injury, the sweat equity, all of that, blood, sweat, and tears, right? It builds grit. But it's not just your physical grit, it builds your mental toughness as well. You know what I mean? Anyone who's ever had to be second string that wants to be the starter knows what that means. It's like, I gotta try harder. You gotta try harder, because you can't just rely on the other guy getting hurt. You gotta outplay him, right?
Yep.
Every JV person knows, because they want to make varsity. So there's that. Okay.
Vin may not know what it's like to be second. Vin, the other 99.9% of football players have to wait for someone.
Yeah. And I would say on top of athletes too, entrepreneurs as well, business people,
Yes.
right? I mean, entrepreneurship is a lot of grit. I mean, the amount of no's you get and the amount of failures you kind of have to go through in order to succeed is monumental. So I have to throw in that as well, or anything. I imagine Willie, being an engineer and creating products and all that. There's a lot of tests, and you tell me all the time the amount of testing you have to do, the amount of going back on the drawing board, right? I mean, it's a lot.
Well, that's why I've tried to work for what I consider the entrepreneurs in aerospace in the past, and they have good ideas, but they're idiots because they don't want to do the work. And not only do they not want to do the work, they don't accept the way that things are done, that they're done for a reason. Like engineering, I'm sure medicine and business, very, very similar. We have regulations that are all written in blood. So if the FAA say do X, Y, and Z, it's because at least a few people died trying to be creative. You have to find a way within the bounds of your sandbox to get a solution. But like Brian said, oftentimes the answer is just grit and it's just sucking it up. It's like, okay, this is what we have to deal with because we want a product that gets certified or technically certificated, and if you screw up, everybody dies. So
Yeah.
choose your suck, right?
Yeah. And then the last thing I had was developing discipline. You got to have discipline.
Oh boy, discipline.
Yeah.
Society seems to
That's a
struggle
whole
with discipline.
season in itself, not just
Woo!
It's
Discipline's a
true.
tough one.
And I think a lot of that comes from this idea, unfortunately, nowadays, that there's this seems to be this attitude that whatever problem I have or whatever project I'm working on, whatever idea that I have, I'm the first person in the history of the world that ever had it. And so I can't go to anybody for help because nobody can mentor me because I'm so far above and enlightened. And that's just not the case. Just to kind of simplify it, and I'll throw it up in titles here so people can really easily remember it, is making peace with your past, finding a purpose, cultivating grit, having natural supports, and developing discipline. Those are really, really important keys to being able to just get yourself out of that proverbial pit that I talked about earlier with depression. And if you're someone who suffers from the grief, guilt, and shame, and you want to get yourself out of there, but you just don't have some of these. Like, for example, natural supports is something that I think that's the one that's hardest to get. That's like trying to get an assist in basketball. You could pass it to the guy, but if he misses, what are you going to do? You know what I mean?
Oh, Lord have mercy. Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And so I feel really badly for people who don't have those natural supports. And because it does get hard because you got to do it on your own. And if you're already behind the eight ball, it is hard. But I would say to those people, they're the ones I think really, really should seek therapy. Because while a therapist is not a natural support, they are a support. And they, at the very least, can maybe help link you to groups, support groups, activities, things like that. A case manager that can kind of assist, especially if you live in a small area, like a rural area, for example. It gets kind of hard, or actually conversely, if you live in the big city, but you're not a very social person, it can be hard too. But that's where therapists can assist. But that being said, it has to be the right therapist. It has to be the right therapist. If you're a man with more masculine qualities, traditionally masculine qualities, like, the APA and a lot of feminist therapists are going to push back with me on this, but I know there are some very, very good proponents of male therapy that will agree with me. And I'll also suggest some for anyone who in the comments or DMs us that wants, some linkage. Look, men and women are built different. And our way, for example, of getting through therapy, while it can involve talking about how we feel, talking about what we think about things, and just being heard and feeling safe, I think that is important. But men aren't necessarily just content with that. We have to take it a step further. We need our clinicians to help us find purpose. Now, that doesn't mean they tell us what our purpose is. They help us on that journey, right? They're like our co-driver in that sense. They're on the journey with us. But you got to find purpose, and you have to help these men that are in desperate need of getting out of this pit. You got to give them opportunities to find solutions. If men are suffering from severe depression, especially in this day and age right now where it's really, really bad, okay, we can't afford to be spending like years and years and years in therapy addressing just depression. If it's depression from the onset and then it gets better, but you're in therapy for different reasons after that, it's okay. But if your depression hasn't really been hammered out like in a decent amount of time, we've talked about men's suicide rates, Vin, in a previous episode, and we know that men are more susceptible to taking their own lives than women. That's why when I say this, I don't say this to criticize other forms of therapy. I say this to try to save men from taking their own lives, because it is a serious thing, and I don't want a person to be in the wrong therapy, at least the wrong therapy for them, that isn't giving them solutions, isn't giving them purpose. Right? Because I know there are therapists out there, they're going to push back and say, well, I do that. Do you? I would just say, do you? Would your clients say that you're helping, giving them purpose? Can they say that you're helping them find solution? Or are they just saying, they just talk about how I feel and I just keep saying it over and over, but I don't feel like, I feel like I'm on a hamster wheel. I want to figure something out long term. And so I have to say that because, again, I know, Vin, it's close to your heart because I know you've had a close friend that took their life. You know, I've seen this stuff in my line of work. It never gets easier, and I never want to see that for anyone.
No, for sure. And I agree. And I think, um, we talked about tribes before, and I think in today's day and age, it's also easier than ever to participate in things, right? So, you talk about a lot of people, men out there that don't have that natural support system, as you talked about. I mean, try go online and try to find some things, right? Either go to the gym, do some group classes, or there's so many different things you can do now to try to be around more people, or do like we talked about, MMA, try boxing, judo or chess club, or do art class, music. I just feel like in today's world, there's just so much access now than ever before, outside of gaming, right? And sitting in your grandma's basement, your drawers on, but like to actually go out and have human interaction. Whether you like people or not, I think that could be healthy, right? Or just go in the gym, because sometimes we go to the gym bros, right? All you need is that one compliment from that jack dude,
Yes.
to say, hey, you're looking better, right? So just even if you're by yourself at the gym or you're doing judo or somewhere, I just think it's a lot, um, easier nowadays to be able to do things and potentially, build friendships, and all of
Mm-hmm.
that. And all you gamers out there, is not friendship when you're online on Twitch or whatever bullshit you're on, and virtually having, friendships, because, to me that's not really a friendship. But
Hold on. Spider Monkey 42069 said, "I'm fucking awesome." All right.
okay, excuse me. But will that son of a bitch go to the gym with you and get your back? I don't know. These
I don't.
fucking gamers.
I love the gym medication. Like I told you yesterday, loud iron on the outside means quiet voices on the inside.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and it doesn't have to be the gym either. I mean, gym helps in my opinion. I think as men, I think
Yeah.
anybody, like, exerting energy, I think is probably one of the most. I mean, it's science too. I mean,
Yes.
listen, folks, science says, men, you need to, exert energy, and actually it helps your testosterone and everything. So we talk about science. I mean, it's legit. But also, again, you create friendships, through
Yeah.
that.
No, you're 100% right about that. And I would add on to that. Everything you said works, but I would add one caveat, and that is you cannot do that while trying to compare yourself to those around you.
Got it.
Comparison robs you of fun. It robs you of happiness, and that's the problem, because then you're always going to say, well, I won Mr. Universe, but I didn't win Mr. Olympia. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I won the AFC championship, but I lost in the Super Bowl. It's just, you're always going to say that, and you're always going to have those beneath you as you're making this upward journey and you're really making progress. You're going to have those below you criticizing you like crabs in a barrel, right? Because, I mean, you don't really get criticized from the top down. It comes from the bottom up. That's just how it goes,
Yeah.
right? And so if you surround yourself with the right people, and you have to make that determination for yourself, because if you start out not having a whole lot of friends, you're not very social, but you make that goal to start being more social, make more friends, and develop natural support so that you can be better along in your journey, there has to be a part of you that is able to vet them. You got to know when someone is using you, or like they don't really have your best interests at heart. You got to be able to do that too, and that's hard as well. And that's another thing you got to do. But I just want to say, like, yeah, you got to vet them, but yeah, also comparison. Don't compare yourself. Like men in a tribe they don't compare themselves. They push each other to do better. It's
Yeah.
a different thing. Like, you don't gauge your success by the same metric as your tribe members, but you push them all equally, you see. But it's also the thing is, because if a tribe that just is constantly comparing themselves, then, like, for example, no one is going to listen to the guy that makes the least amount of money, even though he might actually give really good advice. He just doesn't have as much capital, right? But there's respect. There's respect, not comparison. And so if any one of those tribe members is really going through it and they're in that endless pit, they have a stronger way. They have a stronger success rate because they have those people around them that are gonna push them. They're gonna make them grittier, gonna make them more disciplined, and can help them in defining a purpose. That's just because they know them. Because it isn't
Yeah.
like my purpose is gonna be the same as like everyone, like your guys's, for example. But you know enough about me to be like, why'd you give up on this? You were so passionate about it.
Yeah, it's
But
like it's like Brian's becoming a vegan. Let's fly out to LA and visit him. There's something wrong.
Oh, that happens. That's invasion of the pod people right there.
Yeah,
I'm cocooned up in some UFO or something like that, and I've been replaced.
I'm like Willie, we're flying out immediately. We got to go visit him and straighten him out. And again, nothing wrong with vegans out there. It's just Brian is not a vegan, so if we see something like that, we gotta intervene here.
They're people too. They just don't eat delicious ribeye steaks.
Oh God, a ribeye sounds good.
I think the purpose thing is kind of something that one of the things that I think people may have the hardest time with is just being honest with yourself. And I mean, I know, I obviously have issues with that. I'm sure millions of others do. It's like if you're in a job you hate, if you're doing something you despise, your purpose doesn't have to be easy, but you should at least find some kind of reward in it, even if the reward is, embracing the suck. You do it even when you don't have motivation. I think a big part of that is you have to be honest enough with yourself. It's like, yeah, this ain't for me. Sorry, Mom, I love doctors, but if I were a doctor, all of my patients would fucking die. And you gotta say, okay, well, path X is not working. Do we try path Y, or do we stay on path X until we're old, miserable, shriveled, and much like Inception, old men filled with regret, waiting to die alone? And that's just kind of that is part of the discovery of your purpose is being brave enough to admit to yourself, you know what, self, you fucked up.
Right, and pivoting, right? I think the three of us talked about this a lot. I mean, the mentees I have, one of the biggest thing I always tell them, right? You guys heard this before. Don't be afraid to pivot, right? And it's like it's good to have short-term, near-term, low-term, long-term goals, right? And have a vision, but you got to remember it's going to be a rocky path there, and nothing is ever going to be the perfect timing or how you expect it. And I think a lot of men these days need to realize that because men today are so busy on TikTok or Instagram or watching certain clips about perfection, right? And yeah, it's okay to pursue it, but you got to remember that person you're viewing, right, didn't get there in the smoothest path. And men, or anyone that's listening, have to remember that. Keep those goals, right? Have a certain timeline, but just and strive for it as best as you can. But don't be afraid if something happens along the way or the timing wasn't perfect. But if you keep that grit and you keep fighting, you'll get to that goal. Like you'll get to it. It just may not be how you expected it, right? It's like my favorite graph about either the stock market or just a simple graphic of someone riding a bike up to the flag, right? It's like the stock market. I mean, I always explain to people I like using financial terms because I guess I'm a finance bro. But you probably won't see me invest very often. But like you look at the stock, you zoom out, right? You zoom out 45-degree angle. You zoom in, it's like a freaking tsunami storm, ups and downs, up and down. Yeah. Or it's like a heart rate, up, so it's like that. But that's what I think men need to come back into realization is that that's just how life is. Don't be afraid to pivot. Keep that vision and those goals. And look, I know from personal experience. I mean, that's something that I've learned with myself and with a lot of help from Brian and Willie is that, you have these goals, but it's okay to just accept the challenges that, hey, you may not be at this point, at this age or this time, But then looking back, you're going, oh wow, we did accomplish that goal. It just took an extra 6 months or a year, or we just happened to maybe our goal was this company, but actually this company's better. We actually lucked out not being involved with this company. It was like it was the big man upstairs looking out, going, don't get involved with that company, but this company's way better. So, but I think people can use that correlation, not business wise, but just everything in life in general. Maybe that relationship wasn't the right relationship. It's like you actually lucked out to find this other person, or actually, be patient. Maybe just an extra year or two of that of being alone was actually better.
Yeah. I would say it's like this for men who are really, really suffering from depression, but trying to find a way out. But let's say they're having difficulty finding that purpose. Listen, in the absence of a clear purpose, just do something. Just do something. You can't just sit on the couch all day. Or as Vin always says, in your grandma's basement. You can't just do that. In the absence of a clear purpose, you just do something. Get out there. Even if it means like you're a young guy, never had a job, fuck it, go work at McDonald's. At least you'll get tougher because, man, those customers are assholes sometimes, but it'll make you tougher. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to be loving it most of the time, but it will make you tougher, but it's going to give you some clarity along the way because one, it may just motivate you to be like, man, I got to work myself out of this job. Okay. But at least I'm getting paid and I get all the McNuggets I want to eat. Right.
Man.
Because I'm not a vegan. So
shit, I might do that part time just to get the free McNuggets.
Nuggets if you're a vegan. I'm not convinced there's any things.
First off, shout out to McDonald's. There is 100% meat in there. All right, it's very good chicken. It's very high quality. And by the way, try the new the hot barbecue sauce too. By the way, really good. Anyways,
I love your comment of just try something, and it reminds me. I forget what fight it was, but you already know what I'm going to say. When Boz Rutan, Mr. Knife Knuckles, was commenting, he's like, "Do something, anything."
But it's so true, though. Just do something. I mean, look.
If it's good enough for the 3-time king of pancreas to give it as advice, it's good enough for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just do something. Whether, even if you have like a shitty job that you're not happy with, still do it. But do something is do some research on other jobs or go to a networking event. Or, if you don't have a solution yet, do something else. Like go to the gym more or hang out. Like just do something that will distract you. From that struggle, right? I mean, I think that's probably the healthiest way of dealing with it.
Look, I mean, even if it's, again, because I know you've made the comparison, you're saying like it doesn't just apply to like business, sports, it applies to all facets. Listen, if you're depressed over, let's just say, like this happens to a lot of men now, and we have to address this at some point because of all the incels out there that are going around shooting up places, okay?
Yeah.
Let's say it's because you can't get women, you can't get laid. You can't get into relationships for whatever reason. Okay. You got to ask yourself why. And one of those things might be because you don't have, instead of purpose, it's a matter of clarity when it comes to like what kind of women you're actually into. Maybe that's part of the problem. Okay. That's part of the problem. In the absence of your ideal woman, see as many women as you can. Nothing helps you figure out what you want than when you encounter what you don't want. Okay.
Oh, I could attest to that. I tell you.
I mean, listen, you got to dig. you got to dig through a whole lot of garbage before you get to the treasure. Okay, and that's just how it is. And listen,
it's like food tasting. You got to taste them all.
Yeah, and listen, for any ladies listening, yes, that applies to you too. Okay, there are a lot of dorks out there. So I'm not trying to say that just man, you have to go through a bunch of like garbage women. They're like garbage men too. Okay, I'll admit that. But none of us three though. But
no, of course not.
Of course not. All top shelf over here, baby. But but no. I mean, like I said, in the absence of a clear vision, a clear purpose, just get out there. Just get out there and do something. Like you guys were mentioning earlier, like. This information age, listen, there's a lot of bad because there's a lot of disinformation. There's a lot of toxic. You go to the comment section of anything, you see all this toxicity, right? but if you go out there and you look at the positive side of things, like there are meetups. There are things like I've seen these things pop up where it's like they're not dates, but it's like this thing where you sign up and I think like you go on like these meetups. And it's like it's only capped at 5 people, and and you just meet up.
That's
It could be
it.
at a bar. I guess it's so you could talk to each other, so you
I'm
don't have to
messing
like
with you.
you
That's
know.
it. I want to talk
But
to like 20 ladies. Well,
No,
you
my
know,
old self, not my current self. My old self, we're like, all right, 20, 30 ladies. Let's go.
well, see, these aren't even necessarily like dating. It's just it could be for friendships or whatever. Hey,
Yeah.
maybe they'll want to sponsor our video. I don't know, but
Hey. Yeah,
Vin, go shake some hands. But
you got it.
but
chicks and
but
babies.
yeah, but there's always gonna be something out there. But again, you just got to get rid of that whole comparison thing. You can't be like oh, this sounds dumb. I have a friend that's so social. He just goes to bars all the time, meets people. Yeah, that's nice, but you ain't him, are you? And so
Yeah.
you just,
Yeah.
but
Or just go with him. You never know, right?
or
Is
just
that what you
go.
said? Like, I think the difference between now and back then was back then you had to go out, right? I mean, hanging out was, and that's the thing I always tell parents, right? Let your kids go out.
Yes,
It drives me nuts when you see all these kids always on their phone, their home gaming and all that, which is fine for a balance. Like I play video games too, but I was always out, right? Hanging out with kids in the neighborhood, throwing piss balloons, creating different business schemes and all that kind of stuff.
normal
You know, lemon,
stuff.
Yeah,
you know,
just for
lemonade.
our listeners, don't actually throw piss balloons.
And is just go out and don't be afraid. Like we talked about this earlier, don't be afraid of failure. That's also part of don't be afraid of rejection. Or yeah, you may not meet the friends you wanted to or the girls you want to, but at least you're out there. And you never know, you may meet that person because a lot of the people that met their love, some of it's online, right? But it's a different type of thing. But also just going out, you never know who you'll meet. Just get out there, like you said, and I think that's part of what you said before, right? What we said, not being afraid of failure, have discipline, right? And just put yourself out there. And discipline is consistently going out because you never know, right? The friend you'll meet or the woman you'll meet or whoever. And I think discipline also means having a daily schedule at least. I
Yes,
think people will be surprised how just having just a routine can help you so much. Even something people joke about, even something as simple as making your bed. I mean, there's been so many instances where sometimes I forget to make my bed, and I go home late at night. I go, "Fuck, my bed's a mess." But most of the time, when you go home, your bed's made. You just slide in there. It's so nice, right? It sounds so simple, but it makes a big difference. And it gives you that discipline, right? You wake up, you do a routine, you shower, all this kind of stuff, or whether it's in and out of the office, or you have guys' night, once or twice a week. By the way, Oxford 2017 report for all you ladies out there with significant other, men's night, guys' night, twice a week is like the ideal amount to keep your men's health up. And another thing, real quick to throw in there too, is you mentioned about I think you told me this. I looked up as a official study. I think it said what women in like a decade or like a couple years, 40 or 50% of women are going to be single. That's insane. I think that goes both ways, right? Men just need to get out there. I
yeah.
know Willie's chomping at the,
Excellent.
but I think it's two ways, right? Men just need to go out there, try, and women also need to have realistic expectations too, right? So I think it's a combination of things, but I think what we're talking about can really help with that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But hey, for anyone who's worried about that, see previous episode about the rise of AI sex bots.
Oh Lord, yeah, we got some interesting comments from that, but
Volunteers tribute for product quality control.
yeah. I remember getting DMs. We're getting DMs that they're not questions, but DMs going. Actually, there are questions. Which do we recommend? I'm like, did you not listen to the podcast? I'm like, I don't know sex bots. Like, I don't know what the hell. I thought Lucy and Rachel, my left and right hand, were enough, but now there's fucking sex bots now. Like, what the hell? So I'm like, I don't know recommendations. If you guys know, I don't know, but I don't know if Nissan or Toyota make them, but
I don't know. I don't know about that either. But hey, straight jacking saves you those AI sex bot fees.
Was a scene from THX 1138 where the guy's just sitting there watching a hologram dancer who's gonna, and all you see is like a mechanical arm doing this thing.
Oh my god!
That's gonna be the sad future. for people who do not listen to this podcast.
Now, another thing to talk about too is I think a lot of our listeners actually, I think about it's about 50-50 men and women. And we've got a lot of good feedback from women because we give them very good insight. And actually, a lot of women, I think, understand that men are different from them and we do consume and digest information differently.
There's a
and handle
slight
our
difference.
emotions differently. Yeah. And I think, it's always a small minority of everything, right? Left and right politics, men and women. Like there's always extremes that take it too far, but majority, about the 80%, 90% are reasonable. So on the reason I bring that up is because we did have a question about how can a partner, how can a wife or a girlfriend or a boyfriend, right? How can they be a supportive partner through this? I think that's gonna be really good for our listeners to understand. Like, how can they be of help to their partner who is going through depression? And the second part of this, let's start with that because I think the love part, being a wife or a girlfriend or a husband or a boyfriend, is much different than being a tribe. So let's hammer on both of them. But let's start with the significant other.
Okay, well, let me start with some bad news first. And that is, statistically, let's say the depression in a man affects his livelihood and his ability to generate an income. Okay. And I have to say this because I got to give the bad with the good, fellas. Statistically, within 4 months, I think it is, your wife will leave you or your woman will leave you if you don't make improvements. If you stay jobless for that long, then they're probably going to leave you. But that's not, I don't want to say that as a criticism of women, because the evolution has taught women they should go to the strongest available man. And strong, in this case, meaning can provide, can solve problems and all that. And if you're sitting around moping because you got laid off or something like that, and you are depressed, she, in all likelihood, will leave you. It doesn't mean she doesn't love you. It just means she loves herself too, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that you're not giving her what she needs. Okay, so I have to say that, and I just
and I will criticize men, not women, for that. Because men would need to come up with solutions. Don't mope around.
We do, and that's why I have to say that to kind of segue into my response is, for a woman with her man, it's really not about like just letting him vent, because if he's already depressed, I mean, he'll vent all day. And then 4 months later, you can be packing your bags. Okay, that's just how it is.
What you got to do? Live in your grandma's basement. He's in his drawers playing video games, and you're miserable.
That's all he's doing. Yeah, but a woman's approach should be to play off of a man's strengths, not to make light of any glaring weaknesses that he's developed. And it goes back to purpose, discipline, just wanting to solve problems. Even a guy at his lowest point is still, no matter what the chemical imbalance is, there's still that spark in him that wants to solve problems, wants to be a provider, wants to do those things. He just cannot. And so she has to help him be a part of the solution instead of being a bystander. Okay. She has to encourage him to be strong. That's one of the strengths that I find as a quality in a good woman. Is one of them is encouragement. Encourage him, but encourage him to find a solution. Don't do the naggy thing where you're trying to give him the solutions. Like, why haven't you gone to I went to the post office, they're hiring and all that, but he could be like, but I'm a data programmer. You know what I mean? Don't just say, well, they're hiring at Burger King and McDonald's. Again, you're actually saying that to insult him at that point. Work with him to be like, hey, were you able to go to unemployment to get unemployment benefits? Were you able to do that? Because you got to start somewhere. Okay. That's what I mean. And then
so don't be a Camilla from Sopranos. Got it.
Yeah. Don't do that.
Don't be an Anthony. See, now I finally watched that freaking show. I understand these references. Only took
there you go.
Yeah,
better never than late, right?
Sorry, Brian. I just throw it in there.
Be like Laura or Wendy from Billions, right? Think of it as you're a kingmaker. Okay, you have to build your man into a king. Like from nothing rises a king, right? That's what you're trying to do. Because if he's a queen, if he's a king, what does that make you, right? And so that's what you should be doing instead of like turning this guy into like a court jester. Don't do that. And so like be encouraging, create a king out of him, help him to find that purpose, help him to find solutions without telling him how to do it. It's like, and I know it sounds hard, but it isn't really that hard, and that's what it is. Now, that being said, again, there's different severities. Like we talk about major depressive, where if it's persistent depressive, it's different levels to this. Okay. So you got to go off that. And if it's like really, really extreme, I mean, look, therapy is never a bad thing, provided you get the right therapist. Okay. And so if you're really trying to support
hire Brian,
BrianDoeLMFT.com. Thank you. For men in California and Nevada. But no, but like the thing is, that is important. The man, if he goes to therapy, that is him taking steps to solving problems. Because like we can't do everything on our own. Look, like we can't, like we all have mechanics, we have doctors, we have people that help us with our everyday, our health, our car, all that. I mean, we have Uber Eats, for God's sakes. We're too lazy to go get food. So it's okay to rely on people for certain things, provided you become a better person, you start to reach your prime self, then that's a good thing. And so, yes, a woman should be complimentary. She should be supportive to a man's journey back to the top. She shouldn't be an impediment to it, because if she's going to...
Go ahead, sorry.
I was saying, because if she's going to be reaping the benefits once he's back on the throne, so to speak, she better have been part of the journey getting there, not like a barrier to his ascent.
Yeah. And I think to let women know, I think women realize, some do, but I think we'll have to realize how really critical they are to successful men, right? I think, oftentimes men don't express it enough in some ways, but women are extremely critical to success of a man, especially behind the scenes, right? It's the emotional support, it's the physical support, it's the, like you said, the drive, right? You talk about purpose. I mean, when you have a woman in your life where you truly love and care about, who are going to be or are the women to your children, you're going to have that extra spark going, I got to provide and protect, right? And especially if he loves you, that's the extra spark. And if you encourage him, like what you said, Brian, even if through the rough patches, right? I mean, everyone has their ups and downs, like I explained earlier, right? Every journey is going to have its ups and downs. But you have a strong woman who can be supportive of you. It can take you to new heights like you would never think. And I think women need to take pride in that, but also need to understand that and be supportive and not be a fucking Camilla in Soprano, but be like a Wendy or what's her name?
Laura.
Or Laura in Billions. But I mean, look in real life, right? I mean, and don't get me wrong, there are some men that are jackasses who don't see that. Don't get me wrong. I have to be honest with that. There are some men who, and it drives me nuts, right? It's like, wow, she was there throughout your whole process, but you dump her like that. Like I have a lot, like that loses a lot of respect in my eyes for that man. And sadly, I've seen it, and I've criticized them. Like, you fucking kidding me? She was your ride or die. Yeah.
Spoiler alert for a 10-year-old show. Yeah,
it's a damn shame.
Laura is probably the ideal woman from what Brian was saying. Supportive, not a doormat at all. Absolute kingmaker, and we'll cut a bitch.
Yeah, but and
capacity for violence to defend her family. I kind of like that.
And it did piss me off in the show that he would do that. And yeah, it's a fictional show, but it happens in real life. You see,
the fiction comes from somewhere, right? Like you said, it happens in real life.
Yeah,
fiction does not exist in a vacuum.
Yeah, and that's what men have to also take responsibility and know, like, hey, she was there for you, ride or die. Like, you got to respect that, and all that. So for women out there, just know that men, we do, for a lot of us, we do love and respect you, and your support, even just being there, I think can just be a big plus.
Something I want to address too, because you brought up the idea of like marriage and things like that. Something I have to bring up that I don't think it's brought up a lot when it comes to marriage, and particularly the introduction of a child. Like when a couple has their first kid, Okay. Here's the problem. Now, I'm not going to get into postpartum depression as much because we focus primarily on men's mental health, but that is a real thing. Okay. And so the woman goes through that a lot of times. But what's less talked about is the depression that men kind of go through after the child is born. Because men, we still have this primal need to be loved and nurtured to a certain degree. You know, that's why lots of us form those strong bonds with our moms when we're young. That's also why, like, a lot of men, how many times have you seen this? We're like, you could break an arm, break a leg, twist a knee, and you're like, oh, I'll just duct tape it, get back in the game.
Well, yeah, you're supposed to.
But when you get a cold or a flu, you're like under the sheets, right? The ice pack in your head, the thermometer in your mouth. You're like, I need some soup and everything, right?
I'm not gonna lie though, to be upfront, I was never that way. I'm the dumbass, as Willie knows. I went on a ski trip, I had the flu, and I beat the flu by just keep skiing. So I mean, there are
one of you dickheads sent me. It was only
Yep.
only a woman who's given birth to 12 babies without an epidural has an idea of what a man feels like when he has
Yep.
Okay, but however, I will strike one in the name of science. There is, and this is free. It is on National Library of Medicine. It uses one of a machine called the Google. Neurologically speaking, men are much better able to withstand physical injury, the pain from physical injury, than from something internal.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think this is where Brian will mention an evolutionary advantage to men who are able to, take a spear in the chest and keep fighting.
Of course.
Versus, oh God, I'm a hangnail. I can't war today. I can't stand up.
Well, those men, like we've established, they're food for the crows and the saber-toothed tigers. Yep. But the thing is, the reason a lot of men they get depressed after a child is born is, again, depression is what, like guilt, grief, shame. It's this sort of sometimes this feeling of shame because now they're like, I'm married to the woman I love, but she doesn't pay any attention to me anymore. All she does is pay attention to the kid. Which it's normal. I mean, you're supposed to take care of a kid. I mean, the kid's born, can't just go get a job, right? So you got to take care of him. But now his needs aren't met. Okay? Like, listen, we're all grown adults here. We can talk about how men have certain needs. He's probably not getting his knob shined as often. They're probably not going on date nights. And when they do, they got a screaming baby, right? And then everyone tells them to shut up. Okay, can't go on an airplane without being the annoying couple with the crying baby, right? And so he's feeling like, damn, our sex life used to be really good, but now it's not good. The romance is gone. We're not going on date nights, and so I would say in situations like that, and I know Asian families, for example, we have this kind of advantage in a way where families are pretty tight knit. Grandparents are still in the picture for the child. Couples utilize your family to like watch the kids or sometimes tag along on trips, especially if you're paying for them, right? To watch them. And men, so you could take them on that date night for a couple hours or for the 5 minutes it takes you to get on top of your woman, right? Like,
or just be a man. Hey, or you're gonna be a man and hire nannies and have a private jet. I'm just saying.
There's always that. Well,
class like me.
I'm just saying. But no, I mean, jokes aside, though,
I'm giving middle class solutions.
but like jokes aside, though, I think you're spot on with that, right? I think both sides need to be, like we said, it's a couple, it's a partnership, right? If a woman's going through her postpartum, like support her, help her a little bit around the house, help take care of the child a bit, like take some roles. Or, earn a little money, hire a nanny. But anyways, aside from that, but just be supportive of her, right? And try to help a bit more. And then the opposite side, don't forget that your man's there, right? Because men, however macho we are, we do like the nurturing. Yeah, we like our things in bed. We like to have date night, but men do need, like, in private, some nurturing. I mean, we do like that comfort, right? You talk about the relationship with your mom, right? Moms are nurturing, right? So sometimes we men, because we're out there, right? We're fighting battles. We're going through everything. When you go home, it would be nice to have just some little bit of comfort. So I think both partners need to fulfill each other's needs during those tough times.
Hey, if women want extra incentive to listen to what we're talking about, they should just know that most infidelities happen in a married couple's life when she's pregnant or right after she's had a kid. Okay, that should be extra motivation. But the women have to ask why. It's too easy just to say, "Well, the guy's a dirtbag. He banged another woman because I was pregnant." Is that why? Or was the pregnancy kind of the precursor to all that, and you actually paid him no mind, no attention? The very things that he loved you for went away. You know what I'm saying? It's like we have to be able to ask questions, or else we can't solve problems. You see, is infidelity bad? 100%. But do people do it for a reason? Also 100%. We talk about predictability as being a very, very great thing to have in our lives, right? Like you mentioned, Vin, about setting a schedule, right? That predictability, that discipline gives you that happiness because it's something you can control. Okay. And if you're a man who has this predictability of like every day, like I wake up, my wife gives me a kiss on the cheek and all that, but then suddenly it stops because she kisses the baby. Come on, ladies. Is that hard to kiss two people? You know, we're not talking about two men. We're talking about a baby and your man, you know? So, you know what I'm saying? It's just, again, I'm not trying to validate or like give any justification to cheating on your wife. I want to give people the raw stats. And like, I did my grad work studies on infidelity, you know?
Yeah.
And the stats they're not favorable to pregnant women. I'll admit that. But it's not to say that they can't do certain things that can help. You still got to be a wife and a mom. See, just like
because a woman be the same way, right? A woman be the same way if their husband is not giving them, good thrust, right, and it's a good foreplay, they're not going to be satisfied either. So like so women also, men and women have to think of the opposite side, right? It's like if her organs are not being rearranged, she's not going to be happy, and then if he's not getting his kiss and his knob clean, then it's. But that's just real talk. I mean, look, we're animals, right? We are part. I mean, we have our desires and needs.
Our podcast has to boldly go where no podcast has gone before.
Pretty sure.
What
being real?
Listen, I mean, because look, there's just some things I've noticed in life that men can talk about in terms of like what they're not getting. Like, and sometimes women, maybe they think they're a little demure or whatever, and there's like, oh no, but no, that's a real thing. Like men, if the needs that we had were being met before, but they're not being met anymore, that predictability is gone. But again, like you said, Vin, the reverse has to be true. In fact, I would actually say the men have to do a little bit more because the women did sort of deliver this fucking 8-pound bowling ball out of their body.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And like men need to communicate, right? I think men, we need to step up because again, we are solutions based, right? We are born to lead. And a lot of women, whether, I don't care how strong and independent they are, they do love and respect the man that delivers solutions and take the lead because in many ways, the strongest independent women do want to be treated in some ways like a princess too, because they have that desire when they grow up that they want to be treated well. So I think for men, if our desires aren't met either, have that conversation, right? And it's a tough conversation, but just be real. Mm-hmm. And I think women will respect that instead of you being a little bitch and go around, right, and have infidelities because you can't address it with your woman. So in many aspects, that's at least how I see it. It's like just have a conversation with her. I mean, if you can rearrange your organs, you can have a conversation with her.
Vince, somehow I suspect that we're not going to get a sponsorship from Ashley Madison.
Oh, Lord. Fuck Ashley Madison, man. First off, terrible data management, first off, from an IT standpoint. Horrific. But also, number two, really? Like, I'm still triggered to this day when I watched that first. I'm telling you, my girlfriend's the one that had me watch it. But I think she realized how triggered I was. But that fucking stupid ass guy, I was like, oh my God, like he was acting like a victim. And I'm like, have a conversation with her. She's supportive. She's there for you. She's taking care of the kids. Like she's doing everything that a good supportive wife will do. If you have certain other desires, then tell her. I mean, if you want her to dress like a maid, maybe she will. I mean, like, you never know. Have a conversation with her. I don't know what your fucking kinks are.
Poor guy, you're married to someone who gave you three healthy, I assume healthy. That wasn't a story element in the documentary. Three healthy
Yeah.
babies, still a knockout, and still adores you, wants to know your
Yeah.
fortune.
Hey, poor you. Oh my
I know, like,
God.
you're a victim. Like, fuck you. The list of guys that would bully someone like that alive in acid.
Exactly. Right. And like, that's where, yeah. And that's where this conversation was talking about, right? And that's why I, appreciate, Brian, your input, and Willie. It's like, where's the chemical imbalance? Where's the victimhood, right? And in my opinion, he was pure victimhood because he couldn't talk about his desires. And like,
Yeah.
that's where I kind of like, that, and that's where to me it's disrespectful for someone like him to talk about depression. I'm going, is it really depression, or you just had infidelities and you can't really talk about it, And like, as the story got deeper, I'm going, I want to freaking smash his face in.
But
Yeah.
so looking back, the guilt and shame, you know, did he start that because he had unmet desires and felt guilty about
That's a good
being
point, Willie.
feeling unable to talk to his wife about it? Again, I don't know these people, and documentaries are, fiction by any other name. Maybe he did actually talk to her about it, and they just conveniently edited that part out. Who knows? But I think brings up a great point. You both bring up a great point. If you can't be
Yeah.
honest with your intimate partner, well, I mean, there's something a lot more flawed in that relationship than one or the other, not getting what they want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean, communication, right? It's in business, it's in relationships, it's in everything. Communication is life, right?
Yeah.
You gotta communicate, and even if it's a tough conversation, you'll get over it, right? I mean, eventually you'll be like, oh, okay, I thought about it, right? Because I think, again, we talk about instant gratification. I think it's also the problem with today's society, right? It's even the tough conversations or the tough things you go through. You want like the instant, okay, is it okay? Or like, oh, what's she thinking? Like, no, give it a little bit of time to brew, right? It's like, yeah, you have the tough conversation, but you're not gonna get that gratification immediately. It may take a few days, it may take a week, but just let it ride out.
I would say have a deadline. I know this isn't going to get resolved.
No, I agree with that. Yeah.
You're a 3-time mother. Here are my needs. I say we'll give it till October 15th, and we haven't come up with a solution. I'm going to go screw your sister.
Yeah. But like,
Now,
yeah, I think that's a little extreme, but no, I agree. It's like, don't get the instant gratification. Have like a certain deadline, and maybe not even the deadline, but at least in your mind, kind of have like a timeline. But like, it's like with business, right? What we see all the time, like people want like, oh, the deal now, the deal now. It's like, yes, we do, but or like they want that email immediately back from that person. It's like, be patient. I mean, look, we're raising a fund right now, right? And people people think, oh, you can raise it tomorrow because your connection's like, no. Like it takes time because you have to let things marinate. You have to let them think about it. But if you keep harping on them every day about, hey, what's your answer? You're gonna lose it. Because
proof.
Yeah.
Conversation part. Like I'm gonna go with that example, then, because I think that's fantastic. We want to raise money, raise. Okay, fine. But here's what we've done to prove that we're not complete slapdicks when it comes to it. And I think as the time goes on, more and more evidence mounts that our position is real. I think in the relationship sphere, the more time that goes on that you are demonstrating performance, translate that as you see fit, the stronger your position becomes. I think the other person, if they genuinely give a damn about you, it's eventually going to click. Like, oh, my intimate partner, to use the modern parlance, my intimate partner has needs, but look what they have been doing. Both people need to have the power of introspection and self honesty. Like, oh, okay, well, maybe they're not the problem. Maybe I'm the problem. Maybe we should revisit this conversation.
Yeah, it's a perfect balance of patience as well as urgency, right? It's like, I'm being patient, but I also have the urge to get this done. So, and I think that's the balance that people need to understand. It's, like, let's say outside business with your partner, I love you. I do have these needs. I want to deliver your needs. I'm being patient about it, but like, hey, what's the situation? Like, where do we stand? Do you need more time? I again, that's just communication as well as urgency and patience. And I think that's just the balance that people, and that's part of building a relationship, right? Is just understanding one another over time. Like, especially if you're new together or whatever, it just takes some time.
I think when
Yeah,
people say, "Oh, relationships are built on communication," these are the uncomfortable details that they don't want to mention because
correct.
it involves some kind of ugly, uncomfortable realities that you can't put on a fortune cookie strip.
Right.
But yeah,
And
you're right.
yeah, and like we'll transition into like the tribe part, but like it's like with a tribe, right? I mean, I know Brian has something else to say real quick, but just like with the tribe, right? We all of us have had difficult conversation with one another, right? And like we may not talk to each other for a couple of weeks, but we revisit. But it's like, oh yeah, you were right, stuff that kind of stuff. But like
Yeah.
the uncomfortable is like the best friendships have the most uncomfortable situations over the years.
Awkward people.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That means you're a really good friend, Vin.
Yep, you gotta
Yeah.
be. Yeah.
People have to men and women have to understand that the difference between just dating and where you're going through that phase where you just can't keep your hands off each other, and it's like that fantasy element where you do all the fun shit, but you don't have to pay bills together, you don't have to make big decisions together. Yeah, that's still going to be there when you get married, but you get extra credit, and that's more responsibility and definitely more difficult conversations. And the difficult conversations a lot of times are that determining factor between whether a couple lasts or not. Now, there's lots of other stuff too, but if you break it down to its purest form, it's almost always communication. Okay, and couples aren't always good at taking the next step because you're now having to communicate some things that might seem a little weird, maybe like you never talked about before. Okay, and like the boring stuff is again living together, and now it's like, especially if like let's say one moves in, like the one that moves in with the other has to adjust to how the other keeps their home, and then the one who's hosting now is going to see a disruption to the system, so that's going to be a talk. Okay, and then now you're going to be like, and maybe before, maybe like let's say the woman was spending time like maybe once or twice a week at the guy's house and all that. Yeah, but the guy's going to be on his best behavior and all that. He's not going to be leaving like the socks lying around. He's probably not going to be leaving the bathroom door open when he goes to take a piss, things like that, you know? Well, these are things that are going to have to be reevaluated because maybe that's what he did before, okay? And she might be like, that's gross. But the thing is, they got to talk about it, you know? And another thing is that couples have to address too is when you're married, which for a long time, for example, and you both like still value your sex life, you're both going to have to learn new things. Okay, and that's communication. Well, that's communication and like just learning. Like that's why I always say for men, like when I would say one of the core qualities they need is to be good in bed, and they ask me what does that look like, I'm like, shit, man.
Well, I can write a book on that if you need.
It's
I got
like
over hundreds of different things you can do.
but I'm saying if they got to ask, then
videos available online.
Then I'm just like, oh, I always just say, man, if all you've been doing is missionary for the last 4 years, then your wife is probably thinking of someone else when she has sex with you.
Oh, missionary's boring, man. My
But
God,
like
missionary's so basic.
But that's all they're doing, you know? And so the thing is, something I've found when it comes to just like men, again, just so they can still feel purposeful and not useless, is just talk about that kind of thing. Be open so you don't feel that shame, you know, of like you find out your wife cheated on you, or maybe she didn't cheat, but maybe you eavesdrop and you hear her talk about how bad you are in bed or something like that. It's alleviated by simply talking. And sometimes it just means it could be as simple as you're in bed and you just simply ask like slower or faster, or you ask, do you like it when I do that? What would you like me to do? Something as simple as that. And the truth is, a woman will tell you. In fact, they're probably going to be like, oh my God, I'm so glad he asked. You know what I mean? But we're just not used to it. We're just not used to it.
Yeah, look, just ask her, do you want the bull market or the bear market? Trust me. I'm telling you. But they both work. On this personal experience, the bull market is the best. But you can DM me on that. But the bull market, I'm telling you.
As long as she knows that she wants the bull, she gets the horns.
I think what you said, Brian, and what Vin was saying before, it kind of made me think of and Brian, I know you know this story. Vin, what you were saying about the big guy upstairs looking out for you. Uh, Years ago, and I won't say when, on the 0.601% chance that either of these individuals are listening, which they're not. I actually had my girlfriend at the time step out, um, and my attitude with that sort of thing is like, okay, well, you're a fucking coward. But if you say, well, with who, and they say Brad Pitt, who was quite the sex symbol at the time, I'm like, all right, I get it, but the let's just say that the individual in question reminded me of the scene from Troy. I was like, is this what you left me for? And it's also hysterical because I suspect that something was going on, and her friend, I don't know if they're besties still or not. Actually, it was the one that had the decency to tell me. So Vin, that's the big guy looking out. Brian knows where I'm going with this. That individual didn't know who I was, but I know who he was, and he showed up at that dojo that Saturday for an introductory lesson.
Oh God!
And let's just say there was some vengeance to be had. But no, I mean you're absolutely right, and that's what I don't understand is like how is it that difficult to actually? Why is it so hard to have these fucking conversations with the person that you allege to love and care about? Like and again, unpopular opinion. Yeah, the guys should absolutely say that, but legitimate question for the women. Why are so many that hesitant? Not to be philosophical, but like you are literally having this person inside of you, but you don't want to have this type of conversation with them. To me, that seems like kind of a skewed priority. Like it should be less intimate to have these talks with the other person, not more. Like there should be.
I mean, it's true. I mean, this is like a very preventative. Talk about depression, right? I mean, these conversations can be a preventative thing. I mean, I know a lot of people are thinking, "Oh, sex, depression." I'm like, look, we all have our needs, man. So you'll be more depressed if you don't have these conversations, and like you think about what you said, what guilt, right, and all that, and all those things. So it's I mean, it's a legitimate question Willie asks, right? It's why don't we have these conversations? Because it can be very preventative, and prevent you from further depression or actually going into depression because you're going through these feelings.
Well, Willie, what you were saying about us, like, yeah, you're already sleeping with a guy. Why are you so reserved and asking these questions? It just reminds me of the great Roger Sterling in Mad Men when a lady he was having intimate affairs with was saying something similar.
Yeah, continue.
And his response was, "Don't act so demure. You're already in the bed." And so,
listen, men, just real quick, men, listen. Personal advice of someone who's had probably too many partners in their life. But I'm a good man now. I've settled. I'm good. I know what I want. Just fucking ask her, literally up front. I mean, literally, like what do you want? Like how do you flow? Because I'm not going to rock your world either way. But how do you flow? like what are your desires? You'll be surprised. And Brian said it. I mean, he, when Brian told me this, I went, yeah, that's true from experience. Like he's preaching it, but I know from experience, women love it when you ask them. They really do. And I think it may sound like a small thing, but this can also seep into other parts of your life. Not the whole, rearranging organs, but the whole matter of communications, right? It's like if you're able to have that tough conversation or be upfront with her like that, imagine how you'd be in other parts of your life with communication, right? Whether it's at work or with other friends or whatever, like you're going to be able to have that confidence to have that talk and communication about other things. The tough conversation at work or whatever aspects of your life. I think just you being able to have that confidence. Look, I've done that, and I'm saying it's not even just with your girlfriend or your partner. Random girl at the bar, I've done that. It's like, hey, it's like, look, you're absolutely dead gorgeous. I want to buy you a drink, and then it's more further soft talk, and then we get into it. It's like, hun, what do you like? you tell me, I deliver. Bull market, bear market, stock market crash, stock market boom. What are you into? Rockets? Are you into cars? Do you like speed? Do you like a nice bulldozer? Like what do you want? And you'll be surprised. They come back for more. But usually I delete their numbers depending where I'm at.
Up until that point, I thought you were almost going to be sensitive and caring.
Hey, I'm upfront with that too. It's like, look, this is a hookup, okay? This is not a relationship. Again, that's another thing with men, right? At least, one of the best compliments I've got from my partner is she said, at least you're self-aware, right? I've always been self-aware, right? And I think men need, like you said, you mentioned this early, Brian. It's just you need to know who you are and your purpose, right? I knew at that time I'm a young entrepreneur. I was also an athlete, so I'm a whore, right? I'm a man whore. Look, I have those certain desires, but then later in life, I've mentioned this before in other episodes, but then later in my 20s, I go, I'm over this. Like, this doesn't really fulfill me. And my purpose is really, I'm establishing my business now. I look at families when I go out to eat, and like, I really want to be a great father that my father wasn't. And I want to have a great wife that I will support and will die for her as well as with my kids. But like, and I think a lot of men need to have that honest conversation with themselves. William mentioned this, right? Have an honest conversation with yourself on what you are and who you want to be and what your purpose is. And I think men would be so much better off if they do that. And I preach that to a lot of my mentees. It's like, hey, you're young, like enjoy yourself, and then start to figure out, what you want to be.
Starting around something that I think we all agree. Men are inherently competitive.
Yes.
We demand to be the best. Fellas out there, if none of the wisdom that Vin is sharing is resonating with you, just ask yourself from a raw competition standpoint, don't you want to be the best she ever has, even if you break up tomorrow?
Exactly.
Like, would that make you feel better if you get to the pearly gates, you get your chart of accounts of like, these girls never had better than me. I live my life right.
I am giving her the roaring 20s, baby. The best stock market ever.
Well, see, in the case of Vin,
The roaring 20s?
The roaring 20s, baby. The best ever. Hey, I'm giving the roaring 20s, man. Parties, lots of money. I'm telling you, everyone is thriving. Let's do it.
Well, see, the thing with Vin is it's easy to see, though. You mentioned about the competitiveness. You're an athlete, and then you enter this phase, right? And the connection I would make is, you went from one phase to the next. You went from playing D-line where you had to smash wide receivers and tight ends, and then you did the same thing, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah, I guess. Look, I'm not the perfect person, but I never, will ever say that. Like, I have many flaws.
You repeat that?
Yeah. I have many, many flaws, and I continue to work on improving myself. But again, men listening, keyword, improving oneself, right? And being true to who you are. And I think more men would be happier and can balance their depression or get out of depression if they just do that, right? And accept who you are. Look, not everyone is a fucking man whore like myself. Maybe you do want to have that life early on, right? You want to have that, that wife and all that, but just be who you are, and also surround yourself with the right friends, that tribe that will support you and protect you. I know Willie's seen me through all these phases, but he was always there to be honest with me, and keep me in check. And I've done the same for him, and along with Brian as well. But
choices I can't get behind.
Yeah. And I think a woman, I think women respect that more too. When you tell them your life story, right? I think women, accept immense, like we talk about vulnerabilities, right? I think men would be surprised at how a woman will respect and love you more if you're able to show some vulnerabilities with your life, right? It's like, look, they see you as a strong man and provide protector, but if you're able to talk to her and have the conversation, like, I do have some of these vulnerabilities, or your past, right? They'll respect you a lot more, knowing, wow, you are on the up and coming, you are becoming a better man, and also they know how to also be a better partner for you. In my opinion, that's just in my opinion.
Provided you also discuss a solution, yes.
A solution, yeah. And say, look, I am a man whore, so let me know. uh, how I can satisfy you, but also, Lucy and Rachel can only do so much during a time period. Okay, Lucy gets tired. Rachel gets a lot of calluses from working out. So.
Wow. Well, I mean, it's so much more efficient to just be honest.
Yep.
Like everyone want, well, not everyone. I know most people want to try to be the nice guy. Those air quotes are doing some real heavy lifting. But if you're an asshole, she's gonna find out soon, right? It's like you are no. Line up every Oscar winner in the history of the Academy. Not a single damn one of them is a good enough actor to keep that charade up perpetually. Right?
Yep.
Like they're going to find out. You might as well find out from the beginning. Okay? If I honestly really admire Vin's approach, because for one thing, it leaves you at peace with who you are and how you're approaching the relationship. Second of all, they're going to find out anyway. And third of all, just from the engineering mindset, if it's doomed to fail, wouldn't you rather find that out up front? Do you want to find out that they're the wrong person for you on the first date or the third divorce? Like those are kind of your choices, right?
Yeah.
Again, I'm on a fucking entertainment kick today. Another show quote. Either you guys ever watched the show Dollhouse
Yes.
back in the day? All right, remember
Surprisingly.
I thought that show was brilliant, but
Yeah.
DeWitt, the hard ass, like everyone has their first date, and the object is to hide your flaws, and then your relationship, it's about hiding your disappointment, and then when you're married, it's about hiding your sins. And it's like literally all of that can just be avoided by listening to this podcast and living your life in accordance with our advice.
Look, by the time you're on your third or fourth date and you actually like each other, let it out.
And
you wait that long, I let it out.
No, I gotta make sure I like her first. Like, I gotta make sure, okay, I really do like her, because then I could be better with myself in delivering the honest truth. It's like, look, I mean, I am upfront from the day one. To get me wrong, but it's like just more and more come out by third or fourth date.
I think a lot of that though, and the stats back me up on this. A lot of that is actually on the woman though. What you guys are talking about, because studies have been shown that when a man is given this like an option, or is told like, hey, there's a woman, but she has like 8 out of the 10 qualities that you want. A man is like, holy shit, 8 out of 10. I hit the jackpot on this one. When you flip it, and a woman is like, only 8? Nah, he's a loser.
Is this the department store, the husband store, the 6th floor joke?
That's a variation of it, yeah. But no, this was actually like, I forget the exact study, but yeah, it's just. And here's the thing: if that's what they're willing to say, I don't know, an anonymous survey, I tend to believe it. In fact, I might think it's actually worse in real life, But the problem right now is there's what would make a man happy doesn't align exactly with what a woman would be happy with in a partner, because they think a woman might be like objectively a 6 out of 10, but she thinks she needs an 8, a 9, or a 10, right? Most dating apps align with that, by the way, because there's a lot of dudes on dating apps, but like, because the majority of the
algorithms, they call.
Yeah, I mean, that's just how it is. But why would they change? Because there's a lot of men that would be willing to accept less. And for the record, some of these are actually very high value men who maybe sacrifice some of their social relationship skills in the chase of money and success. So they have high status, they have all of that. They're just not particularly good with women, and they might know their net worth, but they don't know their worth on the sexual marketplace, unfortunately. And so one doesn't translate to the other. And there's probably reasons for that we could do a whole deep dive in, in terms of the childhood and all that. But some women at this time, they feel like they can take advantage of that. And it's just, unfortunately, you can't all win, right? And they turn 40 at some point, and they get increasingly less good looking, and then their options are less, and then maybe they fall into depression, right? Because of poor choices, poor expectations. Whereas men, see, I'll say this about the great thing about men right now is, see, we're not born with value like women are. See, women preserve their beauty, they still maintain a lot of value. We're not judged on how beautiful we are. We're judged on our status and success, accumulation of resources, things like that. We could be old as shit, okay, but worth like a lot. Do you think Warren Buffett, if he just got divorced right now, he goes on like freaking Plenty of Fish? That man would get swept up in like a millisecond. He would
Look at Al
sell out.
Pacino. He's fucking 90 years old and just popping out you.
Al Pacino so much. Aside from the fact he's a great actor.
Those guys.
I liked him so much. I thought he was Cuban. I mean, not Cuban.
Those guys would get swept up faster than like Travis Scott Jordans on the sneakers app. Okay.
Yeah.
But because of their status, that's what I'm talking about. A woman could be super, super rich and all that, but lose a lot of her looks. She could develop a crusty personality. A lot of men aren't going to put up with that. At least not high value men. You might get some dude who's okay with being, the second fiddle. I mean, some men are like that, and I'm not trying to poo-poo on that, but they're okay with just being. They embrace their beta status, I guess, right? And it's okay, whatever, as long as they're happy. I mean, but real strong alpha men, sigma men, they're not. No, they're gonna be like, no, I'm building my own wealth. I'm building my own station in life. I don't need a woman. I don't need to step into her frame, enter her status. No, that actually would make a lot of men depressed. Actually, men of purpose. I mean. See?
Yeah, no, absolutely true.
Best of that personally, but I did, and Brian Matter, I did have an ex who was extremely wealthy, like driving to the parents' house. Oh yeah, that's my parents' house. Where aren't we going in? Yeah, but the driveway's over here. And yeah, the little cheek pinch, like, don't worry, I'll take care of my sweetie, like.
Yeah.
There is nothing as a man that makes you feel more worthless than even just an innocent comment like that. But no, Brian is spot on in that regard.
Now, switching gears we talked about significant other with the wife and girlfriend, tribe. I mean, I know we've talked about tribes before and being a friend. Like, if you want to be a friend, be a fucking friend. Anything to add to that on how a friend can help another friend, a tribe member, if they're going through depression? I know for me, the way I handle it is distract them. Like, if they want to talk about it, they can talk about it, but I'm not going to force you. I'm not like some people just force it, and I'm like, don't force it. It's like, take them to have a bite, go to the gym, or watch a movie or a show, or throw piss balloons, stuff like that.
If you're under 18, maybe, because you can still be.
That's what I mean, under 18. Listen, as a kid, I bought one of those freaking RC planes, and was able to engineer a way where if it tilts left, the piss balloon drops. It was pretty cool. Anyways.
Wow. Man, they didn't teach me that in the Scouts. Damn. But nothing happened, by the way. So I mentioned predictability earlier.
Yeah.
Your friends are your friends for lots of reasons, but one of them is predictability. You know what you're going to get when you call them up, and you need to pick me up. For example, like, if I know if I call Willie up, then it's not going to take long before the crude jokes fly, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
Crude jokes are actually my ringtone for you.
It's been like that for like 20 years. You know what I mean? And so the thing is, that's to be expected. That kind of predictability helps because I know what I'm getting. But I also then know when I am I feel like I'm at a low point. I also know what I'm going to get, and it's not going to be that. See what I mean? And so friends' predictability should never be taken for granted. When you do stuff that just makes you who you are, just know that you're actually contributing to that predictability that helps that person feel supported. You know what I mean? And also, like, again, because of predictability, when one of your tribe members is a little bit off, right? They're off their A game. They're a little more moody and irritable. They're not going out of their way to be an asshole to you. They're just not as responsive. And so something is just off kilter. then that's when you jump in, like you said, Vin. Maybe distract them. Maybe just call them just to share a funny story. Call them just to say like, hey, let's go. Do this tonight. Like I heard like this comedian's in town or something like that. Something that is somewhat predictable because some of you would normally do, right? But it's something that draws them out and gives you guys an opportunity to talk. Because let's be real, right? In this day and age, man, you might have a tribe member that's like 2,000 miles away. That's how life goes, right? You might have a guy in Alaska or something, for God's sakes, right? They're not going to be at your door, but they can still reach out through the power of technology, so people can do that, but like it's a matter of noticing it because the predictable patterns aren't there anymore, and you got to jump in. You got to say something. There's no shame in ever just calling up a friend for some random reason, and just saying, "Hey, man, let's talk. Let's catch up, dude. I've been so busy. You've been busy, but man, I got to set some time aside, right?" Or just something like that. Or sometimes like sending them like a random like meme, or even just sending them something in the mail. Back in the day, people still did that. You send them something in the mail, say something like that.
Or like share a memory.
Share a memory. Yeah, man. Like shit. The other day, I sent Willie a picture from fucking 2008. It was at my birthday party. And I was like, man, I was crazy. It was just like, because for me, it was special to me because like I don't do birthday parties, but I did that one, and Willie showed up and all that. We're barbecuing. It was just a good time. It was just a long time ago, but it meant something to me though. You see, and so I was just sharing that. And so just little things like that to kind of share moments, like you said, like memories, things like that. Heck, yeah, it's just doing what you normally do, but adjusting when there's unpredictability. So you're compensating for unpredictability.
And there's definitely no excuse if you live near each other as well. Like to me, that's definitely like you're 2,000 miles away. I get it, but if you're not that far from one another, there's no fucking excuse. Like that's something I would not give a pass. And sometimes it's okay to be assertive. Like you definitely know something's wrong. I'm the type, that you guys know this. I'll just show up at your fucking doorstep with a bottle of wine and some pizza and Dairy Queen and be like, "Hey, let me in, you motherfucker." But like.
Just wired a 13 kV transformer to my doorbell, man. Come on over.
Fine, I'll drive my car through the damn door. So I'm here. But no, I mean, it's that's a real friend that will do that, right? And it's like fuck off. We're actually going to do this and show up. Or if it's something, and if you're a real good tribe member, if something did happen significantly, you will fly 2,000 miles. You make a special trip. So I think that's spot on. I think men listening who are part of a tribe or like real close friends or building a friendship, I think it's important that you do that. And look, all of us are scrolling on your fucking toilets in the morning. Like you have no excuse to not have time. There's 5-10 minutes there. You're sitting there shitting on the toilet. You're scrolling.
My shit made me think of you. Here is a meme.
Yeah, or you're in between meetings, or you're in the cab or something, or you're having lunch. There's no excuse. I mean, there's always. I mean, you guys know. Sometimes I'll send Instagram reels in the most random times because it's during a diligence call that I have no reason to be on, but they wanted me on, so I already did the diligence. But yeah, I think that's important, and I think life would be better for a lot of men if men just become actual friends. And I think a lot of that is kind of fading a little bit, but I think people can revitalize that.
Yeah, I would also add that a lot of men would be happier if they ignored the noise about that. Like, there's a lot of people who aren't men telling men what we should be, which is a lot of things they're saying is essentially contrary to our whole evolution. The very concept of a tribe draws on evolution. The tribe grows strong, the tribe survives, right? It doesn't. We don't become food for the beasts, and so we have to tap into that sort of primal need to gain resources, gain power, gain significance, gain purpose, right? We have to be able to do that, and we do that in a group. there's been a lot of talks, right? Like in the like social circles and things like that with men about like everybody knows what an alpha male is, right? There's always talks about like sigma males now, which I mean, it's not a bad thing. Sigma males actually have a lot of strong qualities that a lot of alphas have, minus maybe the need for attention and things like that. They're not born leaders of men, but they're but they also don't need to necessarily be led either. But sigma males will fit into a tribe. They're just not going to be the leaders, but they're also not going to be like the ones that bring no value, or not. I don't say no value. That's harsh, but like there's going to be like mentor, like mentees can be part of a tribe, right? Because they're learning from the elders, so to speak, right? That's fine, but they start from the bottom. That's just how it goes. That's just how the hierarchy goes, right? But it's certain men that identify as alphas, I find that sometimes they aren't actually alphas at all. And I definitely find in this day and age, people who identify as sigmas, they're not sigmas. They're just more like men who have no purpose and they're kind of outcast. But they're if they suffer from depression, it may come from this clash where they may be feeling a certain imposter syndrome, the shame, because they're telling everybody, they're puffing their chest out saying, I'm a sigma, but they're not. Deep down, they know they're not. On a wolf hierarchy, they're like an omega, right? They're like the ones that get sent out to die, right? But they don't have to stay that way. It's just that instead of being flamboyant and like being like ostentatious about it, actually be it. Then there's no clash in identity. There's no shame. You're going to be the thing that you claim to be. That's what I mean. And that would help a lot of men. Like, you know, like a lot of men.
Self-awareness.
Self-awareness. A lot of men get criticized for being beta males, but I'll just say this. You kind of need beta males, though. I mean, you kind of need them. Like, if the world was a bunch of alphas, it's like the whole idea of like a bunch of chiefs and no Indians, right? Some people, I mean, Will, you and I talked about this in a prior podcast. There's nothing wrong with a man who's just like saying, you know what? I'm destined to be like in this trade. I'm a carpenter. I'm a mechanic. Something like that. There's nothing wrong with that. Maybe they don't want to be the owner of the business. They just want to work with their hands, produce something.
Find value in the execution, not in the
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is perfectly okay. As long as they never compare themselves, they don't let anybody compare them to the owner and all that. They don't get mixed up with all that stuff. That's going to be the happiest guy, right? And that's perfectly fine. There's no clash in identity, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's, like we said, self-aware, but I think men need to realize everyone has a role.
Yes.
I think a lot of men would be happier if they just know and accept that you have a role. Like you're not useless. You have a role in society. You have a role in your tribe. You have a role in your family. You have a role in your work. Everyone has a role. I'm religious, but I'm not pushing this. Like, but I know with God, like He puts you on this planet for a reason. And again, you don't have to believe it or not, but I'm just saying there's a higher being and there's a purpose. Like you said, men of purpose. Everyone has a purpose on this planet. You're not just born for no reason. You have a purpose, and don't compare yourself. Some have, like you said, comparing yourself will just eat you away. But you have a role, and without you in that role, other parts of society or your tribe or your family wouldn't function. And I think a lot of men or everyone, men and women, but especially men, you need to understand you have your role. You know, and it's just everyone on this planet, all billions of people, you have a role, accept it, and then you just have to go through your own journey of identifying your own purpose and your self being. But I that's the biggest lesson, and you won't have that guilt or that shame and all that if you just know that it's like, hey, you have a purpose, man, and you're no less than anyone else either. Unless you're Diddy. I'm trying. Sorry, I had to throw Diddy in there. It's a popular trending topic. I'm just saying. And by the way, Costco doesn't sell cases of baby oil. Leave Costco out of this.
We're so close to getting you to say an emotionally mature thought. He's that fucking up right there at the end. Well done.
And I have to say too, for the men out there, especially guys who are a little bit older, okay, nothing on this planet says that you're only destined to have one purpose. Okay, this country loves men who reinvent themselves. right?
Mm-hmm.
Men who are great at one thing, they go on to do another thing. Now, we're not all going to be like that Johnny Kim guy that Willie was mentioning earlier. That guy's like a fucking living cheat code. It's like his life is just achievement unlocked, like on his Xbox. But you can reinvent yourself. I mean, for example, if you're a pharmacist right now, sorry to break it to you, but you're going to have to reinvent yourself. But we're going to see who's got that grit and discipline and who doesn't in the coming years, because that's a field that's just, it's dwindling.
Automated.
Yeah. Yep. Look at the number of Walgreens out there and all that, right? You have to pivot. Vin, that's a word you use a lot in your line of work. You have to be able to pivot. You got to read the tea leaves. You got to kind of be ahead of the game, right? But like some people, they're not ready for it, but they're gonna have to be, right? Like I joke about how I learned that in the Scouts. It was be prepared. That's what they always taught us. You have to learn how to do that when you're a kid. You get a lot of life lessons. You gotta be like, am I gonna play sports? Am I gonna focus on academics? What am I good at and all that? But then when you go into college, the stakes are higher because you got to declare a major, things like that. But now, as we've all learned, you can pivot or you can have a double major. It's not the end of the world, right? But it's perfectly fine. Just have one major, then you go further with it and you stick to one thing. That's fine too. But you may find it later in life. People shouldn't judge themselves by like, I should have done this earlier. That's where the depression comes in.
Yeah, I hate that word should have. I hate
should have. Therapists
should have.
Therapists hate that. Therapists hate that because now you're setting an unrealistic standard of yourself. So no, I agree.
Yeah, I
should
mean,
have done it earlier. Yeah, but you could have not done it at all.
Yeah,
So,
I mean,
what would be the bigger tragedy?
Erase that word in the vocabulary. Fuck should have. Like, just don't worry about should have. And and it's funny. You look at back in history, right? I mean, we talked today about reinventing yourself. It's okay and doing multiple things. I don't know when this happened, but doing multiple things and having multiple purposes became a bad thing. And I never understood where that came from because even back a couple hundred years ago, when our founding fathers, right, wrote the most beautiful piece of paper, well, second to the Bible, in my personal opinion, but the Constitution, right? I tear up.
Secular piece of paper.
Oh my God, the Constitution's gorgeous, but it has some flaws, but it's the most perfect, one of the most perfect documents. I mean, a lot of them were 18, 21, 24. Look at Benjamin Franklin. He was what? I mean, he had like 6, 7 different things he was working on. I think the closest today is like Elon Musk, right? He's doing multiple different things. And so I think men just have to remind themselves it's okay to have multiple purposes and do multiple things. I mean, Will and I are doing that, right? We have multiple different projects, politics, finance, startups. I mean, there's multiple things. I love chess. He's a pilot. We have so many different things, but it's okay as long as you have that purpose and you still accomplish what you need to, along with protecting and providing for yourself and for your family. It's okay. Why not? And that keeps you focused, A, right? B, keeps you out of depression in many ways because you have a sense of purpose. And then also, I lost my train of thought what the third part was. But in general, I think it just makes you happier. And I really want to encourage a lot of men out there to do different things. And I don't care how young or old you are, as long as you have the ability to have the fundamentals of providing and protecting, go for it. And especially if you're a younger male, right? If you're a younger person today, go for it. I mean, your teens and your 20s are the times to do it. But there's nothing wrong with it. And whoever tells you that you can't do it, that you're unfocused, and all that kind of, tell them to go fuck yourself. Like just because you're not able to do multiple things at once and able to accomplish multiple things doesn't mean I can't. Right? Go back to your grandma's fucking basement and play video games with your drawers on, eating fucking Doritos and M&Ms all damn day, and being 3,000 pounds. Like, you can do it, okay? Like, have confidence in yourself, and eventually you'll focus in a little bit. But even then, you can still do multiple things. Like, we need more Renaissance men, right? Exactly. I mean, my girlfriend calls me a Renaissance guy. I'm like, what? I'm just doing what I'm not. I don't think I am. Yeah, she thinks so, but like,
it was a great example, man.
Yeah, but I'm like, I don't think I am. I I like to dabble multiple things. Willie does the same thing. I mean, he texts me all these freaking things he's doing, ideas. I'm like, go for it. I don't give a shit. I'm like, fine, cool. Yeah, I mean, identify a problem and fix it. I mean, we lift. I still play basketball now. I take tennis. I love to golf. I love to invest, do startups. I like getting into politics. I like, but there's nothing wrong with that. And I think
No,
men need to do more of it.
no, and it goes back. I mean, I'm just gonna rewind it back to what I mentioned earlier for our listeners about, like, if you find purpose, natural supports, you develop discipline and cultivate grit, your likelihood that you're going to be able to hit on the things that you're talking about, Vin, your chances skyrocket. Okay, especially if you're young. Man, a young man that cultivates grit at an early age by maybe academics, playing sports, things like that, that is going to be a dangerous man. Like,
Yeah.
when he hits his like mid-20s, 30s, that is a dangerous man. And I mean dangerous in a good way, because if he's got the grit, the discipline, and he's established a purpose, and he has a support around him, a support system, that's a guy that's going to do really, really great things. And that's a guy that you're going to want to hire, you're going to want to mentor, and bring into your tribe. And so for the younger listeners out there, you get a jump start, early. That'll be like when you go to college, you got those AP tests that you pass, you got the extra school credits and all that.
Oh, that
You're
was
going in
amazing.
it,
Yeah.
you're going
Yeah.
into that with like a leg up. But also, I don't say this to discourage the older guys, okay? I don't say it to discourage older dudes, because you've got stuff in your own life that probably cultivated grit. Maybe you forgot about it and you just got to be lifted up. Maybe your tribe needs to lift you up a little bit. Maybe your therapist can kind of remind you of your wins. I talk about wins a lot and celebrating wins. You got to make peace with your past. But once you do that, you find purpose, you have your natural supports, cultivate grit, develop discipline. Man, that's a guy that you want. You want to hand that guy like the keys to the castle. You want him to take the last shot in the game, right?
Yeah.
That's the guy you want.
And also, I'll help you through the bad parts of your life, depression, and or moments in where you hit bottom or you have a hiccup, right? Or you fall over a little bit. When you have that multiple purposes, and you try different things, you have multiple interests and all that, it will help you through that. Look, I will speak from personal experience, right? When I had a little rough patch there for about a year and a half, right? Willie went through with me, and I appreciate his support and love. And Brian, you're the same way, right? I mean, there's, no matter how successful you are, you will hit some patches, right? Because there's always been people coming after you, right? Always coming after you, and then also you kind of lose yourself, because success can sometimes do that for you, especially when you're young. But because you have multiple things in your life, okay, you take a deep breath. You play a little bit more basketball, or you do chess. You kind of, you kind of decompress a little bit, and you kind of go, okay, I got to refine myself. But because you had so many, you built that grit, because you have so many different avenues that you can go to, you have more options to battle and get back out of it. And then you're blasting Jay-Z public service announcement. I'm back, motherfuckers. But no, for a lot of young men out there, when you do pursue that, and you have multiple purposes in your life, you're going to be able to get through those ruts much easier. I'm not saying the rut I got out was easy. I've had multiple, but you guys, but everyone knows, and you guys know, I've always come back bigger. And it's because of that, because I know I have that grit. I know what I need to do. But there's moments where I just gotta go. You know what? Fuck it. I just need a break. Right? I need a break. I just need to travel a little bit. I need to play chess. I need to lift heavy shit again. Just kind of recollaborate. But because I have so many hands in the pot, in different pots, I can go, okay, where, what did I learn, and what can I focus on? But you have more options, because you're all in on one thing. Sometimes you have no other hobbies or interests. You lose self-purpose. You're like, I have nothing to do. Like, at least for us, I know for me, at least I was like, okay, I'm gonna back on this project a little bit to kind of do that. I'm gonna go to the gym a little bit more. I'm gonna play a little more sports a little bit. I'm gonna travel a little bit, kind of enjoy a little things here and there. But I think that's very, very helpful for a lot of men out there. Because again, you have no hobbies, you have no other purpose and everything like that. It's going to be tough for you to get out of these ruts.
Oh, absolutely. And as we've mentioned, there's so many things now that young men, older men can do to help with finding natural supports, finding a group of like-minded individuals, supportive individuals, but also ways of making a new identity. You mentioned like sports, for example.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like older dudes, like, yeah, we get it. You're if you're like 50, you're not. Yeah, you're not going to be going open tryouts with like the New England Patriots, you know. But it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean you can't take that competitiveness somewhere else. Gyms are a great
Yeah.
avenue, as you guys know.
And have older leagues too. I mean, a lot of these guys have
Yeah,
older leagues, or try a new sport, pickleball or whatever. Like you said.
yeah, exactly. I mean, because how many times,
Didn't you just say something nice about pickleball?
Shut up.
like how many times have you seen? I mean, and I'm going to bring it back to sports because again, you know, you guys were athletes. Like, how many times, right, do we see athletes pivot
Yeah.
into entrepreneurship, into
Mm-hmm.
broadcasting? Um, oh, lost Willie for a second there. You know, whatever the case may be, and they're able to adjust. The best of them, I think, because of the grit and discipline that you get from sports and from listening to your coaches, right? I mean, that's probably something you guys to speak more to.
No, 100%. I mean, that's where, like I said already, right? It's, during that rut I had, I started racing sports cars a little bit more. I actually got serious with basketball, started playing basketball. And then I start, just reading more and trying to figure things out. And, it's worked, because you have that ability to do so. But anyways, I think, look, we could talk a lot more about depression, these issues, and things get out of, but I think we've covered a good amount for this episode. I think our listeners have a lot to digest, and I think I hope it's been very helpful for both people going through it, feel like they're going through it, or the little more inspiration, as well as the people around the people, like the support system, what they can do better. And Brian, really always appreciate your expert input. Hopefully, Will and I have provided some good insight from personal experience, some comic relief. But we also want to say, we appreciate you listeners, and please send us questions that you have. What we're going to do going forward is highlight those questions, and have Brian answer them, as well as continue to share our podcast. The key thing now is just spread the message. I think it'll help. And don't be afraid to ask us anything. DM us, comment, whatever. We're at 30,000 listeners right now, so great that we grow that. And I think we can create a good movement, at least for us men, to have open conversations about these issues. We'll figure out what the next episode will be about, but we can talk about, there's hundreds of things we can talk about, but also send us your ideas. If there's certain things you want us to talk about, we'll provide that input, whether you like it or not.
And I don't think it's just going to be me answering the questions. I think our listeners also want to hear from you guys. They want to hear. I mean, I have to imagine we got engineers listening, even civil engineers, Willie. We have entrepreneurs. We have entrepreneurs. We've got people who have like athletic backgrounds that, like for example, Vin, you're able to kind of discuss in a way that a clinician like me doesn't necessarily, depict things. So yeah, I think all three of us can offer very unique insights.
Yeah, and I think one of the things we'll actually know what I think a good next episode, and our listeners let us know, is discipline. I think we wanted to touch about it, right? Which is, again, the holiday season's coming up, depression goes up and all that, and I think a lot of it can be handled with discipline. People overspending, and people being embarrassed if they maybe not be able to gloat about their successes because they're going through a rough patch, or they can't buy a certain gift that this person wants. I think that would be a next great episode. And listeners, if you have particular input or questions you want us to provide, please let us know before that episode.
Oh man, and before the holidays, I can't remember the exact episode, but I know in your guys' other podcast, the Finex podcast, I know you kind of covered like the spending and all that. I think people should do a little rewind on that one before December.
No, for sure, and we'll definitely emphasize it for this podcast as well. A little crossing here.
Yeah.
But no, I think men's mental health are definitely affected during this time of year. So let's definitely address it.
Yep.
Thank you all.
Thanks, folks.